Chapter 17. It was a young girl wearing a blue silk dress. Her clothes were fitted to her body, revealing her well-proportioned and beautiful curves. This girl's skin was as white as snow, as if it was carved out of snow jade. She had a plain and cold face, and her face was as cold and arrogant as an iceberg. Her pupils were blue like ice crystals, and she looked both magnificent and cold. Her long hair was also ice blue. As it fluttered in the wind, ice crystals scattered down, giving her a mysterious beauty. The girl was cold, arrogant, and indifferent. She was like an ice goddess, making people look up to her. It was Xia Yubing, its cousin Yubing. She finally came out of seclusion. Its sister Yubing. She just fell from the sky. She should have broken through to the Qi refinement realm and can temporarily stay in the air. She really is in the Qi refinement realm, and it's the third revolution. The elders in the stands all sucked in a breath of cold air. They were already very surprised that Xia Yubing could break through to the Qi refinement realm, but they didn't expect Xia Yubing to break through 3 small realms and directly reach the third revolution. This kind of cultivation, this kind of talent, was really terrifying. Good, very good. Yubing really didn't disappoint me. Xia Yuan tightly clenched his fist, unable to hide the excitement in his heart. The shadow of Xia Yin being defeated in one move also disappeared in an instant. Compared to Xia Yubing, Xia Yin was insignificant. Qi refinement realm. Yi Guqin looked at the cold and beautiful girl and frowned slightly. He didn't expect Xia Yubing to break through to the Qi refinement realm so quickly. It seems that the inheritance of the North River Sword King is no small matter. This Xia Yubing is a bit troublesome. Yi Guqin thought. He wasn't afraid of Xia Yubing. Even if Xia Yubing obtained the inheritance of the North River Sword King, he was confident that he could quickly surpass her. But now, the gap between his cultivation and Xia Yubing's was really too big. Cousin Yubing. Seeing Xia Yubing appear, Xia Yin wanted to say something, but stopped. He was a bit ashamed. Xia Yubing didn't even look at Xia Yin, but turned to Yi Guqin. Their gazes collided in the void. The entire square instantly fell silent. They knew that in the past, Yi Guqin and Xia Yubing were publicly acknowledged as Dao companions. If it wasn't for the incident in the Sword King's secret domain, it wasn't impossible for the two of them to become Dao companions. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of warmth in their eyes. As if sensing the bottomless depths of Yi Guqin's black eyes, Xia Yubing's brows twitched. She could feel that Yi Guqin was different from before. Yubing, I didn't expect that you would be able to recultivate and even defeat Xia Yin with a single strike. Xia Yubing spoke, her voice as ethereal as snow. I didn't expect you to be able to stand in front of me so calmly. Yi Guqin's tone was cold, but there was an uncontrollable resentment in his heart. This was the hatred that the young sword sect Yi Guqin had towards Xia Yubing. Oh, isn't that what Yubing wanted to say to you? After all, I didn't kill you even when you treated me like that in the Sword King's secret domain. Furthermore, I'm still allowing you to live in the Xia family. Xia Yubing's tone was calm, as if she was talking about something insignificant. Xia Yubing's words caused the disciples of the Xia family to curse Yi Guqin. You should know best what the truth is. There's no benefit in explaining. Even if you obtain the inheritance of the North River Sword King, I will accompany you to the end. Not only you, there's also that Gu Xiaoyang. Yi Guqin indifferently said. Although you've started recultivating, you don't have the sword vein, the innate sword embryo, and your talent is gone. How can you make a comeback? Not to mention Sir Gu. Even I can suppress you with a flip of my hand. Xia Yubing's tone wasn't heavy, but the meaning behind it made Yi Guqin frown. Is that so? Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows. The North River Sword King was an expert of the sword Dao who had crossed the spirit bridge. The inheritance he left behind is something you can never imagine. Xia Yubing was very confident, and it could be felt from her tone. Obtaining the inheritance of the North River Sword King was equivalent to obtaining the inheritance of a great sect. One could imagine how much a person's strength would increase with the resources and ability of a sect. Originally, the inheritance of the North River Sword King should have been obtained by Yi Guqin. As a 7th rank Heaven's Pride, if he obtained the Sword King's inheritance, his future would truly be limitless. Unfortunately, This smooth path was directly destroyed by Xia Yubing and Gu Xiaoyang. So, Yi Guchen's lips curled into a cold smile. Xia Yubing opened her mouth and condensed her voice into a thread of true qi, transmitting it only to Yi Guchen's ears. In the past, I could only follow behind you and become your background. I begged you to teach me the Myriad Sword Codex and the Boundless Heaven Sword Art, but you refused. But now, I don't need it anymore. I have spirit-level cultivation techniques, sword arts, and even spirit inscriptions divine weapons. Step by step, I will become an existence that you can only look up to. Xia Yubing's words were transmitted using true qi, so only Yi Guchen could hear them. Yi Guchen wasn't surprised by this explanation. Originally, Yi Guchen also knew that Xia Yubing was ambitious. However, he never expected that Xia Yubing would betray him like that for the sake of her own ambition. Just now you defeated Xia Yan with a single sword strike. Now, Yubing will return the favor and defeat you with a single sword strike. Xia Yubing said coldly. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire crowd erupted. This was simply a slap to Yi Guchen's face, giving him a taste of his own medicine. No one would think that Xia Yubing was boasting. She had the confidence and strength to speak like this. The faces of the Xia family disciples below the stage flushed red, as they shouted Xia Yubing's name with all their might. On the stage, the origin ring on Xia Yubing's slender fingers flashed, and a 4-foot-long sword appeared with a sonorous sound. This sword seemed to be made of ice and snow. It was dark blue in color, and had an icicle-like cutting surface. The tip of the sword emitted a faint cold air. Faintly, some traces of spirit inscriptions could be faintly seen on the translucent sword body. This was a spirit inscription's divine weapon, and its grade wasn't low either. It wasn't much weaker than Yi Guchen's Calamity Dust sword. This sword is called Glacier. It was once the sword of the North River Sword King Chu Donglu. Today, I will use it to defeat you. Xia Yubing's jade-like fingers stroked the sword body. It was hard to say whether the sword body was more translucent, or her fingers were more translucent. She attacked with her sword. It was only one attack. On the Glacier sword, a total of 20 spirit inscriptions were lit up. At the same time, these spirit inscriptions were connected to the spirit inscriptions. The dark blue spirit inscriptions were instantly lit up. The entire Glacier sword suddenly exploded with cold air. The reason why a spirit inscription's divine weapon was stronger than a normal spirit weapon was because of the spirit inscriptions. Xia Yubing's attack had directly activated one of the spirit inscriptions on the Glacier sword. As the spirit inscriptions were lit up, an incomparably cold air spread out from the sword body. At the same time, true qi surged around Xia Yubing's body. This power was far stronger than profound qi. Her sword swept out. The vigorous sword qi was like a blizzard, covering the sky and earth as it surged towards Yi Guchen. Compared to this terrifying sword technique, Bei Ling's stormy wave sword technique paled in comparison. This isn't one of the 3 great Xiantian sword techniques of the Xia family. Yi Guchen's heart trembled. It was very difficult for him to receive this attack, but he had to. This is one of the inheritances left behind by the North River Sword King. It's a spirit-level sword technique that's far stronger than Xiantian sword techniques. The Glacier sword technique. Xia Yubing said coldly. It's actually a spirit-level sword technique. An uproar sounded. All of the Xia family disciples were shocked by Xia Yubing's strength. She could even use a spirit-level sword technique. As expected of our Xia family's phoenix, Xia Yuan's face revealed an excited expression. A spirit-level sword technique could cause the spirit qi of heaven and earth to resonate. Its power was far stronger than Xiantian sword techniques. Yi Guchen frowned. He immediately used the Taiji sword technique. The tip of his sword drew a circle. It was extremely simple. Boom! When the sword swept over, Yi Guchen's body shook violently. Even though he had passed the first minor tribulation and cultivated the body metamorphose scripture to minor completion, he still felt as if his body was about to collapse. Xia Yubing suppressed Yi Guchen in terms of cultivation base, spirit mark divine weapon, and sword technique. If it was an ordinary person, even if it was the other heavens chosen, who hadn't broken through to the qi refining realm, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to receive Xia Yubing's sword. Not to mention that Yi Guchen's cultivation base was only at the 9th layer of body tempering realm. This sword is probably real. If he hasn't broken through to the qi refining realm, it's almost impossible to receive it. The Song family elder thought. Crack. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from within his body. At the same time, Yi Guchen's skin began to crack. Even though there was a layer of skin under his skin, it couldn't withstand the might of this sword. The entire stage seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure of this sword qi. More than half of it cracked. At the same time, an extremely cold qi spread to Yi Guchen's body. It seemed as if it was going to freeze and crack him. I'm going to take this sword. With a boom, Yi Guchen ignited all the qi and blood in his body. Raging blood flames soared and blended together with the extremely cold qi, grinding away at each other. Xia Yubing's eyes were filled with surprise. She didn't expect Yi Guchen to be able to endure for so long. This won't do. With my current cultivation base, I can't use the Taiji sword technique to reflect the sword qi. I can only forcefully receive it. Yi Guchen's mind was as firm as iron. Even though his body was covered in countless wounds, and his skin was slightly purple from the cold, he still didn't make a sound. The Xia family disciples who were originally cheering were silent. They didn't expect that Yi Guchen would actually be able to receive this sword. Finally, the power of this sword had been worn away to the end. The entire stage was covered in a thick layer of frost. This was caused by the spirit-level sword technique, drawing in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and turning it into cold qi. Yi Guchen violently spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he still stood perfectly straight. Blood flowed from all over his body. He seemed to be in a sorry state, but no one could look at him directly. Xia Yubing frowned. She seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied that she wasn't able to defeat Yi Guchen in one strike. He actually received it. This Yi Guchen is truly worthy of being a former sword master. Although they didn't want to admit it, whether it was the Xia family disciples or the elders in the stands, they all sighed inwardly. Clearly, the shock that Yi Guchen gave them was still too great. There was a gap of 2 realms between them. It was said that every realm was like a mountain. Facing a qi refinement martial scholar, Yi Guchen had actually received this sword with his body refinement martial scholar cultivation base. This was simply inconceivable. If it was anyone else, it would be absolutely impossible for them to do so. I will receive this sword of yours. In the future, I will definitely return it. Yi Guchen frowned coldly and turned to leave. Wait! At this moment, Bei Ming stood up from the stands. With an uncontrollable murderous intent, he locked onto Yi Guchen. You are the masked man who killed the genius of the Bei family, Bei Ling, in the Cloud Valley Mountains? What? Once these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Who was Bei Ling? He was the genius of the Bei family. Although he wasn't as strong as the Thunderbolt Sword Master, Bei Angelica, he was still stronger than the average essence martial scholar. For example, although Xia Yan's strength was not bad, compared to Bei Ling, he was still slightly weaker. However, Yi Guchen was able to kill Bei Ling, defeating Xia Yan with one strike. Wasn't that inconceivable anymore? No wonder he could defeat cousin Xia Yan with one strike. He is someone who can kill Bei Ling. He is too strong. His cultivation base has already been destroyed, but he is still able to kill a genius of the essence martial scholar with his body refinement martial scholar cultivation base. This is unbelievable. Bei Ming's expression turned even colder when he heard the discussions of the Xia family disciples. Chapter 18. Dark North walked down from the stage, his murderous intent rising. In the Cloud Valley mountain range, it was rumored that the person who killed our clan's Bei Ling had used a strange sword technique that could absorb sword qi. Right now you have actually used such a sword technique as well. Moreover, with the level of cultivation that you have displayed, even though you might not succeed in killing Bei Ling, it is definitely not impossible. While Dark North was questioning, a powerful spiritual energy poured out from his body. This elder of the Bei family was a godly soul realm expert. The 4 stages of the mortal evolution realm were body tempering, essence qi, qi refining, and godly soul. Dark North had reached the end of the 4 stages. Next, he would need to break through the life and death threshold and build the heaven and earth spiritual bridge. Although he had not broken through, the godly soul realm was already considered strong in the Milky Way province. Facing Dark North's spiritual pressure, Yi Guchen remained calm. He knew that there was no need to deny it. I did kill him. Yi Guchen admitted. Kid, you dare to admit it? Dark North's murderous intent rose, and he was about to attack. At this moment, Yi Guchen took out an ordinary jade token. It was the identification token of a core disciple of the Xia family. Although I am about to leave the Xia family, at least I still have this item. In the Xia family sparring square, an elder of the Bei family openly killed a core disciple of the Xia family. I wonder if this will cause a storm. Yi Guchen's tone was calm. He used to be the leader of the prodigies. Naturally, he had the right to receive preferential treatment from the Xia family. He had also helped many Xia family disciples. He had a clear conscience towards the Xia family. However, the Xia family's attitude towards Yi Guchen was disappointing. This was also the last time that Yi Guchen would use the jade token of a core disciple of the Xia family. You good kid. Dark North's expression turned even colder when he felt Xia Yuan's hesitation. The truth was just as Yi Guchen said. If Dark North had openly killed a core disciple of the Xia family during the sparring competition, the Xia family's reputation would have been ruined. Although many people, including Xia Yuan, did not like Yi Guchen, they had to admit that he had an identity jade token. He is merely a stray dog. Elder Bei, after Yi Guchen is expelled from my Xia clan, you can naturally act and kill him. Xia Yubing, who was standing coldly by the side, suddenly opened her mouth and spoke. In a split second, Yi Guchen's gaze was like a sword as he stared straight at Xia Yubing. His gaze was as sharp as a sword and as cold as a demon's. Xia Yubing's heart trembled slightly. She actually took a small step back. How is that possible? I was actually scared by him. Xia Yubing furrowed her brows, feeling a bit vexed. A woman's heart is the most poisonous. Xia Yubing, you will regret the words you said today. Yi Guchen coldly stared at her. All right, for the sake of the Xia family, I'll let you live for another day. If you dare to step out of the Xia family's door, I'll kill you immediately. North Sea's voice was filled with murderous intent. Who wants to kill Chener? You. A clear and cold voice suddenly rang out. It was a very light and gentle voice, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder as it resounded in North Sea's ears. Who is it? North Sea furiously shouted. Not good could it be? Xia Yuan's heart tightened as cold sweat dripped down his back. The reason why he didn't chase Yi Guchen away, and the reason why he revealed a hesitant expression just now was because Yi Guchen had an aunt whose whereabouts were unknown. Moreover, her strength was unfathomable. In the distant sky, a beautiful figure slowly walked over. With every step she took, a lotus flower would rise from the void beneath her feet. Lotus flowers blossomed with every step. What is that? Heavens! Walking on the void. Only experts who have broken through the threshold of life and death and stepped onto the spiritual bridge can traverse the void. That's Yi Guchen's aunt. She's actually so powerful. Terrifying, too terrifying. This kind of expert. North Sea, who was filled with murderous intent and had a fierce expression, was now so frightened that his soul almost left his body. Even his withered fingers were slightly trembling. Although he was an expert in the divine soul realm, he was still in the extraordinary realm. However, once a person broke through the threshold of life and death and stepped onto the spiritual bridge, he was no longer an ordinary person. This was the so-called shedding of the mortal body and transcending into the divine. In the sky, the beautiful white-robed woman's sleeves fluttered in the wind. She looked like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. There was a lotus flower mark on her fair forehead, and her face was covered with a veil. Those who didn't know would definitely think that the face under the veil was as beautiful as a fairy. However, only Yi Guchen knew. This aunt wasn't his biological aunt, but his father's friend. Her name was Xuansu. His father had entrusted Yi Guchen to Xuansu since he was young, and Xuansu had always doted on Yi Guchen. However, Xuansu's face was always covered with a veil. Due to an accident, when Xuansu was bathing, the young Yi Guchen accidentally barged in and saw Xuansu's face without a veil. At first glance, Yi Guchen was almost scared to tears. because it was an extremely ugly face. His entire face was uneven, covered in earthworm-like veins, and his lips were a strange bluish-purple color. He was like a zombie, and he looked strange and terrifying. From then on, Yi Guchen never got close to this aunt of his. Even after putting on the veil, and Xuansu became a fairy with a white robe and a jade veil covering her face, Yi Guchen never got close to her. However, even though Yi Guchen resisted like this, Xuansu still took care of him to the best of her ability. After Yi Guchen went through the incident in the Sword King Mystic Realm, the first thing Xuansu did was to search for elixirs and treasures that could treat Yi Guchen's injuries. She only returned now. Are you the one who wants to kill Chen? In midair, Xuansu, whose face was covered with a veil, looked like a goddess from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. Although her voice was ethereal, a trace of killing intent could be felt. Yi Guchen was Xuansu's reverse scale. Touching it would make her angry. No, this may be a misunderstanding. Maybe I got the wrong person. Dark North forced a smile and hurriedly waved his hand. Oh, all right then. Just as Dark North heaved a sigh of relief, Xuansu suddenly attacked. She stretched out a slender jade-like hand and pointed out a finger. Endless genuine qi gathered and turned into a condensed beam of light that swept toward Dark North. Run! Feeling the terrifying power of the light beam, Dark North did not even have the intention to fight back. He turned around and tried to escape. However, in an instant, the light beam pierced through the back of Dark North's head. Dark North was considered an expert in the entire Milky Way province. However, he had died just like that. The entire martial arts arena was dead silent. A divine soul realm expert died just like that? He died so easily. Xia Yuan's back was drenched in cold sweat. Although he did not show killing intent toward Yi Guchen like Dark North, he did not treat him well either. He's dead. As for you, Xuansu lowered her head slightly. The only thing visible on her face was a pair of watery eyes that stared at Xia Yubing. Xia Yubing's expression changed drastically. Before she could do anything, Xuansu's slender waist moved. In the next instant, she appeared in front of Xia Yubing. So fast! Yi Guchen exclaimed. That speed was so fast that even his naked eyes could not capture it. Please show mercy. At least you've stayed in my Xia family for so many years. Even if we didn't contribute, we've worked hard. Xia Yuan hurriedly shouted when he saw Xuansu attack Xia Yubing. Xia Yubing was the phoenix of the Xia family. If she died, it would be a fatal blow. However, Xuansu's attack was not to kill Xia Yubing. Slap. It was a resounding slap to the face, incomparably crisp and clear. It was Xuansu's jade-like hand that slapped Xia Yubing's face. Xia Yubing retreated a dozen steps. Soon, a red and swollen palm print appeared on her face. It somewhat destroyed Xia Yubing's temperament as a cold goddess. Xia Yubing was stunned by Xuansu's slap. She was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Her icy blue eyes stared at Xuansu as she clenched her fists. Yubing, why aren't you apologizing to Senior? Xia Yuan hurriedly ran over, afraid that Xia Yubing would do something rash. If she angered Xuansu, the entire Xia family would be turned upside down. After all, the person with the highest cultivation in the entire Xia family was an old ancestor who was in seclusion. His strength was far from Xuansu's. She had to apologize after being slapped. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely not be able to swallow this anger. However, Xia Yubing could still smile after taking a deep breath. She said gently, "It's Yubing's fault. Please forgive me, Senior." Xuansu's brows furrowed slightly. With Xia Yubing's attitude, with her cultivation and identity, she really couldn't make things difficult for her. However, Xuansu didn't plan to kill Xia Yubing, even though she knew that she might be one of the main culprits behind Yi Guchen's death. This Xia Yubing can really endure. Yi Guchen frowned. If Xia Yubing's personality was like Xia Ying's, he wouldn't take it to heart. However, she could endure with such a personality, and was good at scheming. In the Sword King's secret realm, she had caused Yi Guchen's downfall in one fell swoop. Such scheming, personality, courage, and now that she had obtained the Sword King's inheritance, she would definitely become a great enemy in the future, if she wasn't eliminated early. Xia Yubing, you're really strong. Even I was deceived by you before. You actually let Chen be with you. Xuansu's voice was very cold. Yubing doesn't know what senior is talking about. Xia Yubing's face didn't turn red, and her heart didn't skip a beat. Xuansu waved her sleeves and turned to Yi Guchen's side. After seeing Yi Guchen's injuries, Xuansu's eyes were filled with pity. However, she didn't dare to get too close to Yi Guchen. She knew that ever since Yi Guchen accidentally saw her true appearance when they were young, he was unwilling to get too close to her. Auntie, I'm fine. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. Xuansu was stunned. This was the first time Yi Guchen took the initiative to talk to her in the past few years. Amen, it's good that you're fine. The reason I didn't kill that Xia Yubing is because I want you to deal with her yourself. I know. Let's go. Yi Guchen suddenly reached out and grabbed Xuansu's hand. Xuansu's hand was very cold, like a piece of cold jade. The temperature was too abnormal. Xuansu was stunned again. Feeling the warmth from her palm, Xuansu's beautiful eyes faintly sparkled. She also grabbed Yi Guchen's hand. This wasn't the will of the sword demon Dugu Wu Bai. It was the original will of the owner of this body. He owed Xuansu too much. Just as Yi Guchen was about to leave, he paused his steps. The jade token that represented the core disciple of the Xia family was thrown into the air. Then sword light flashed. The jade tablet shattered and exploded in the air, breaking into countless pieces. From now on, I, Yi Guchen, have nothing to do with the Xia family. And Xia Yubing, wait for me to return that sword strike. Chapter 19. Following the departure of Yi Guchen and Xian Su, what had happened in the Xia clan today would definitely sweep through the entire Shanghai city, and even the Milky Way prefecture like a tornado. There were rumors that Xia Yubing had returned to seclusion after Yi Guchen and the others had left. However, she had left behind a message. If I had used my sword intent, Yi Guchen would definitely have died. Although no one knew if she had said this to save face, or if it really was so. At the very least, Xia Yubing's reputation had been greatly tarnished by this battle. After all, she had obtained the legacy of the North River Sword King, and broken through to the third cycle of the Qi refinement realm. In the end, she had still been defeated by Yi Guchen, who was only at the 9th layer of the body-tempering realm. No matter what, Xia Yubing's halo had dimmed a little. In less than half a day, the news had reached the Bei clan. The patriarch of the Bei clan was furious, but there was nothing he could do. At the very least, they could not afford to offend Xian Su. Meanwhile, in a pavilion of the Bei clan, tables, chairs, and jade screens had been shattered one after another. A young man in luxurious robes had his face flushed with anger. Damn it, you actually killed my younger brother. Yi Guchen, you truly deserve to die. This young man was the prodigy of the Bei clan, the Thunderbolt Sword Master Bei Dangui. Although he had yet to break through to the Qi refinement realm, he was only a step away. If I had been a little more ruthless back then, I could have killed him directly. However, he was ambushed by me and his aura was completely gone. Then he was pushed into the water. How could he have survived? Bei Dangui could not understand. But no matter what, he knew that Yi Guchen had to be killed. Men, inform the patriarch that I will enter seclusion to break through to the Qi refinement realm in half a year's time. I believe that Yi Guchen will definitely not miss this opportunity. When the time comes. Bei Dangui's expression was cold and ruthless as he began to scheme again. On the outskirts of Shanghai City, in a small residence in a beautiful bamboo forest, Yi Guchen sat cross-legged on the ground. Behind him, Xian Su was dressed in snow-white robes. She extended her hand and placed it on Yi Guchen's bare back. Streams of gentle and pure real qi flowed into Yi Guchen's body, nourishing his body that was riddled with scars. This healing process had already lasted for several days. Auntie, my injuries are no longer serious. Although Sword Demon was not used to calling such a young woman aunt due to his experience, Xian Su was indeed sincere towards Yi Guchen, so it was natural for him to call her aunt. Xian Su retracted her hand and wiped away the sweat on her forehead. Although her cultivation was unfathomable, she had been providing pure qi day and night for the past few days. It was inevitable that she was exhausted. This Xia Yubing has obtained Chu Donglio's inheritance. Her cold sword qi is extremely harmful to the human body. Chen, are you really alright? Xiansu seemed to be a little worried. Thank you for your concern, Auntie. I'm fine. Yiguchen smiled. He had passed the first minor tribulation of the blood tribulation of the physical body, and could transform his blood into flames. Thus, he could somewhat restrain the icy sword qi. However, his current cultivation level was too low. That was why Xia Yubing's attack had left him in such a miserable state. Chen, it's all my fault. If I hadn't failed to see through Xia Yubing's heart, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Xiansu's watery eyes were filled with self-blame. How can I blame you for this? I was blind. Yiguchen consoled her. Xiansu felt some warmth in her heart when she saw Yiguchen become close to her again. She had always covered her face with a veil, because she was afraid of scaring the young Yiguchen. However, as time passed, wearing a veil seemed to have become a habit. Right, I found some things outside during this period of time. They're all useful to you. With that, Xiansu's origin ring flashed and 3 items were placed in front of Yiguchen. The first item was a jade box. Yiguchen opened it, and saw that there were 3 elixirs in it. One was as red as blood, one was as blue as crystal, and the last one was as clear as jade. These are vitality pills, and qi gathering pills, Yiguchen said in surprise. Vitality pills could adjust one's blood qi and provide life essence. Its effects were even more significant than the dragon blood transforming fruit. Vitality pills could help a martial artist condense their blood qi into essence and break through to the essence realm. The energy gathering pill could help transform the profound qi into genuine qi. It could be said that these 3 pills were all pills that could help a martial artist break through to the next realm. The first 2 kinds of elixirs were not bad. Although they were rare, they were not that rare. However, the qi gathering elixir was much more precious. Many warriors were stuck at the peak of the profound origin realm. The appearance of a qi gathering elixir would make many people jealous. Chen, I see that you've begun to recultivate. These pills should be helpful to you, Xiansu said. Yiguchen nodded. He was now in the 9th level of the body refining realm. Although the pills were external forces, Yiguchen wasn't afraid of his cultivation being superficial. With the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra, he could cultivate to perfection in any realm. Yiguchen turned to the second item. It was a spiritual medicine that looked like a ginseng. It was as red as blood and had many roots. This is a supreme grade spiritual medicine, 100 veins blood ginseng. It is said that the inside of the blood ginseng is filled with veins like a human body. After taking it, not only will it replenish one's blood qi, but it will also help to repair all kinds of damaged meridians. Chen, your sword veins were once destroyed by the people of Starry Sword Pavilion. This should be able to help you recover them, Xiansu said seriously. The value of a supreme grade spiritual medicine was much higher than that of an upper grade spiritual medicine. This 100 veins blood ginseng alone was worth 10 dragon blood transforming fruits. Furthermore, it was very difficult to obtain supreme grade spiritual medicine. Xiansu must have gone through a lot of trouble to find this item. As for the last item, it was a jade slip. This is... Yiguchen was confused. However, Xiansu's words made Yiguchen's eyes shrink. This is the first volume of the Universal Sword Codex, Xiansu said. The Universal Sword Codex was the cultivation skill that Yiguchen had been practicing. It was a spiritual level cultivation skill. However, Xiansu had just told him that he had only been practicing the first volume of the Universal Sword Codex. Then, Yiguchen understood that the Universal Sword Codex was the cultivation skill that his father had practiced. There were 3 volumes in total. The first volume alone was comparable to a spiritual level cultivation skill. According to Xiansu, the second volume would be comparable to a king level cultivation skill. The first volume of the Universal Sword Codex is about cultivating the sword veins. Chen, you have cultivated 108 sword veins previously. However, it was destroyed. With the 100 veins blood ginseng, you should be able to recover quickly. However, in order to cultivate the Universal Sword Codex to the top, you need to cultivate 360 sword veins. After cultivating 360 sword veins, you can cultivate the second volume. The second volume of the Universal Sword Codex cultivates the sword heart. The first volume of the Universal Sword Codex cultivated the sword veins, while the second volume cultivated the sword heart. The sword veins could increase one's genuine qi and increase the power of the sword qi. As for the sword heart, Xian Su explained that after cultivating the sword heart, one would be able to quickly master all kinds of sword skills. It would also increase one's understanding of the sword essence and sword principle. Yi Guchen sighed. He already had the sword devil talent. If he had the help of the sword heart, his comprehension ability would be terrifying. Chinner, don't worry and cultivate. The reason why I am passing the second volume of the Universal Sword Codex to you is that I have to go on a long journey. Xian Su stretched out her hand, as if she wanted to touch Yi Guchen's head. After hesitating for a while, she finally put her hand on his head. Yi Guchen felt a chill on the top of his head. Where are you going? Chen-er, are you worried about me? Xian Su's bright eyes were filled with a faint smile. Of course. Yi Guchen nodded. Xian Su was silent for a long time. Then she sighed. It's your father. I am going to help him. Father, where is he now? Why hasn't he come back since he entrusted me to you since I was young? Yi Guchen asked. He was also curious about his mysterious father. Chunner, it's still too early for you to know all of this. Wait until you're strong enough to stand in front of me and protect me from the wind and rain. At that time, you'll naturally be qualified to know everything. Xian Su pursed her lips and said. Yi Guchen was silent. It was true. Although his talent was unparalleled, his strength was too weak. Xia Yubing had put him in such a difficult situation, let alone his father. Chen-er, don't think too much. Grow up in the Saint Origin dynasty with peace of mind. Xia Yubing is your first target, followed by Gu Xiaoyang. Gu Xiaoyang is the Mizar of the 7 Great Bears of the Starry Sword Pavilion. He is a 7th grade genius. In addition, he has taken away your innate sword embryo. He is now one of the top geniuses in the Nantian region. When you can defeat him, I will tell you some things. Xian Su said earnestly. All right. Yi Guchen nodded. Xian Su stood up. When it was time to leave, she looked at Yi Guchen with eyes full of reluctance. She had raised Yi Guchen since he was young and watched him grow from a babbling baby to a handsome young man. Xian Su's heart was filled with complicated warm feelings. Then I will leave. Chinner, take care. Xian Su's beautiful eyes lingered for a while before she finally turned away. By the way, Aunt, are you sick? Yi Guchen suddenly asked. Xian Su stopped in her tracks. Chapter 20. I noticed that your hands and feet are cold, and your entire body is as cold as snow. Plus your... Yi Guchen wanted to say her appearance, but he concealed it in the end. Xian Su sighed and nodded slightly. I accept your concern, Chinner. However, the 7 evils heart-devouring poison in my body is refined from the 7 types of yin energy in the world. It is extremely poisonous, and has been a chronic illness for many years. It can only be suppressed, but not eradicated. Yi Guchen was shocked by Xian Su's words. Xian Su had been suffering from a hidden illness for many years. She had used most of her mental energy to suppress the 7 evils heart-devouring poison, but she was still able to display such strength and kill a divine soul expert in one move. If Biming Spring knew about this, he would definitely die of shame. It seems that my aunt's true strength is beyond my expectations, Yi Guchen thought. Xian Su was going to help his father. It was obvious that it was not an ordinary matter. It would be good if she could increase her strength. Yi Guchen thought for a while and no longer hesitated. He passed the martial arts mental cultivation method from his previous life, the 9 Yin manual, and the 9 Yang divine technique to Xian Su. Chun, what kind of cultivation method is this? After completely memorizing these 2 mental cultivation methods, even Xian Su, whose strength was unfathomable, revealed a look of shock in her beautiful eyes. She had never seen or heard of such a cultivation method. To cultivate the 9 Yin manual, one needs the power of extreme yin and extreme coldness. Ant's 7 evils heart-devouring poison is also extremely cold. Perhaps the 9 Yin manual can alleviate it. As for the 9 Yang divine technique, one can cultivate the power of pure Yang. It should be able to restrain the 7 evils heart-devouring poison. Ant may not be able to cure the 7 evils heart-devouring poison, completely by cultivating these two cultivation methods. But it will not be difficult to slowly refine it, Yi Guchen said. These two cultivation methods are really strange. They restrain each other and connect with each other. Perhaps they can really cure my 7 evils heart-devouring poison. Chun, you have given me a big surprise. Even Xian Su, who had always been calm and composed, could not hide her excitement. She immediately pulled Yi Guchen into her arms. There was hope for a cure for her chronic illness. Yi Guchen only felt that he had fallen into a soft place, and there was a cold fragrance at the tip of his nose. In his previous life, the sword demon lived a lonely life and did not get close to women. At this moment he seemed to be at a loss. As if sensing that she had lost her composure, Xian Su hurriedly released her hand. But for some reason his heart skipped a beat. On the other hand, Yi Guchen's expression did not change. What's wrong with me? Why did I lose my composure? Xian Su was vexed. After that, Xian Su reminded Yi Guchen once more before turning back to look at him with every step she took. In the end, she flicked her sleeve and left. Who knew how long it would be before they could meet again? Although Yi Guchen's real identity was the sword demon, Duge Wubai, the sword demon, who had always been cold, couldn't remain indifferent to his aunt, who had given her heart to him. These two techniques should be of some help to her. Next, it's time to cultivate, Yi Guchen said to himself. In order to find out about his father and help them, Yi Guchen had to defeat Gu Xiaoyang. Gu Xiaoyang was originally a 7th-grade genius of the Starry Sword Pavilion. In addition, he had merged with Yi Guchen's innate sword embryo. He had become a top genius in the South Horizon region. The Saint Origin dynasty was just one of the countless dynasties in the South Horizon region. Gu Xiaoyang was still a little far away for Yi Guchen now. Now he had to deal with Xia Yubing. Yi Guchen had said that he would definitely get back that sword. After these few days of nourishment, my body has already reached its peak. Next, it's time to break through to the essence realm. Realm had always been Yi Guchen's weakness. Most of the time, it was his realm that limited his combat strength. However, with the elixir given by Xian Su, Yi Guchen would not need much time to cultivate back to his original realm. He put the 3 items that Xian Su had given him into his origin ring, and then headed to the Cloud Valley Mountain. At the bottom of the Icefire Cliff in the Cloud Valley Mountain, the Icefire Yin-Yang pool was still steaming with hot and cold qi. In the pool, Yi Guchen was half naked, sitting cross-legged in the pool. Last time, Yi Guchen had only been at the edge of the Icefire Yin-Yang pool, and had not completely sunk into it. However, now Yi Guchen was completely soaked in the pool. Although there was still some distance to the eye of the pool, Yi Guchen could feel that the power of ice and fire were alternating in his body. It was as if he had repeatedly experienced a hell of fire and ice. The pain was far beyond what an ordinary person could endure. Why is there no reaction? Yi Guchen was waiting for the Thunder Calamity sword in his dantian to change like last time. Was I wrong? Was it just a coincidence? Yi Guchen thought to himself. However, he could not help but regret it now. Just as Yi Guchen's body was about to reach its limit, the Thunder Calamity sword in his dantian finally vibrated again. Wisps of power of thunder burst out and spread all over Yi Guchen's tendons and veins. Now, Yi Guchen took out a jade box from his origin ring and swallowed the qi and blood elixir. In an instant his body, which had been in a sorry state because of the power of ice and fire, was suddenly filled with blood. His tendons and veins swelled like dragons, emitting a dull buzzing sound. Yi Guchen wanted to use this opportunity to cultivate the muscle-bone strengthening scripture to the advanced level and pass the second minor tribulation of the blood calamity of the physical body at the same time. Boom! As Yi Guchen used the various moves of the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, the tendons and bones in his body were constantly emitting crackling sounds, like beans being popped. That was the twisting of his bones and tendons, transforming and being reborn. Boom! Yi Guchen's body once again emitted a violent sound, like a muffled thunderclap. In the next moment, there seemed to be a golden light surging on the surface of Yi Guchen's body. A vigorous aura was brewing in his body, and then suddenly burst out. Muscle bone strengthening scripture, advanced level. Yi Guchen's eyes opened and 2 rays of golden light shot out. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and a force that he had never felt before flowed through his tendons and bones. Vajradharma body. It was rumored that after cultivating the muscle-bone strengthening scripture to the advanced level, the body could transform into the Vajradharma body. If he cultivated the marrow cleansing scripture to the advanced level in the future, and mastered the 2 body refining techniques, he could even cultivate the legendary Vajradharma body. In the pugilistic world in his previous life, only the first ancestor, Dharma, who was ranked first among the top 10 unparalleled experts, had cultivated the Vajradharma body. In the pugilistic world in his previous life, there was no such strange place as the ice and fire yin-yang pool. Naturally, those who could cultivate it were rare. However, in this world, there were many strange places. There was no lack of dangerous places that could temper the body, just like the ice and fire yin-yang pool. That's it, I'll do it in one go. Yi Guchen did not plan to stop. The blood in his body flowed in the opposite direction. He wanted to pass the second minor tribulation of the blood calamity of the physical body. The familiar pain came again, but it was far worse than the first time. This time, not only did the blood flow in the opposite direction, but his body also felt like it was burning. Even his tendons and bones felt like they were being scalded by magma. The inhuman pain made even Yi Guchen grit his teeth. If he had not cultivated the Vajradharma body, it might have been extremely dangerous for him to pass the second minor tribulation. After an unknown period of time, the intense pain had turned into numbness. In addition to the pain of the blood calamity of the physical body, there was also the pain of the ice and fire forces, repeatedly torturing his body. Even though he had cultivated the Vajradharma body, Yi Guchen's body was still somewhat broken at this moment. There were countless wounds of different sizes. A few days later, Yi Guchen, who was bathed in blood, suddenly let out a long howl. The scabs on his wounds fell off, revealing the new snow-white skin inside. However, the degree of flexibility was astonishing. Ordinary spiritual weapons could not cause any harm to Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen clenched one hand into a fist. The blood in his body surged like the roar of a dragon and the roar of a tiger. When he punched, the blood in his body burst out and vaguely formed the shape of a dragon and elephant. Boom! The mountain walls shook. Gravel rolled down and thick cracks spread in all directions. Fortunately, the surrounding environment had been tempered by the ice and fire yin-yang pool for many years, so it did not collapse. The second minor tribulation has passed. Feeling the power of the dragon and elephant in his body, Yi Guchen clenched his fist tightly. Right now, his strength had already exceeded 5,000 jin. The power of the dragon and elephant was so great that even a normal Qi refinement realm grandmaster would not dare to compete with him in terms of strength. Of course, no martial artist would be so stupid as to only rely on strength to fight. It's time to break through to the next realm. Yi Guchen was still not satisfied. He wanted to break through to the essence realm again. He took out the essence condensing pill that Xian Su had given him and swallowed it directly. Instantly, Yi Guchen felt that the surging blood in his body seemed to be guided and flowed continuously in his tendons and veins. The essence condensing pill intensified the flow of blood in his body, and in this process, the blood in his body seemed to become purer and more condensed. Finally, at a certain moment, a wisp of essence Qi was born in his blood. It was like the first sound of heaven and earth. Boom! In an instant, Yi Guchen's blood in his body seemed to have a chain reaction. More and more of his blood began to transform into essence Qi. At this moment, Yi Guchen finally broke through the body refining realm and reached the essence realm. Yi Guchen was not surprised by this. Before his cultivation was crippled, he was at the peak of the essence realm. Now that he had such vigorous blood and essence condensing pill, it would be surprising if he still could not break through to the next realm. Moreover, with such vigorous blood and essence Qi, Yi Guchen had not only broken through to the next realm, but also to the second level of the essence realm. After a while, he broke through to the third level. This kind of increasing speed of breakthrough was unheard of. But Yi Guchen did it. With the help of the muscle-bone strengthening scripture and the tribulation, his body had a terrifying amount of blood and essence Qi. Therefore, he broke through more than one level. This kind of crazy breakthrough did not stop until he reached the 5th level of the essence realm. Feeling the essence chi flowing in his body, he found that it was much purer than blood and essence chi. Now half of Yi Guchen's blood and essence chi had been transformed into essence chi. When all of his blood and essence chi had been transformed into essence chi, he could try to break through to the chi refining realm. Yi Guchen also believed that this day was not far away. Chapter 21. Yi Guchen had benefited a lot from this closed-door training. He had mastered the body metamorphosis scripture and possessed the Vajra celestial body. His body was extremely tough. He had also passed the second minor tribulation of the blood tribulation of the physical body. He possessed the power of dragons and elephants. He had broken through to the 5th level of the essence stage. For the current Yi Guchen, a genius like Bei Ling could be killed with a flip of his hand. There was no pressure to speak of. Yi Guchen reckoned that even if he were to face Xia Yubing now, even if he was unable to defeat her, he would definitely not end up in a sorry state. Now that my strength has increased greatly, it is time to leave. As for the eye of the ice and fire yin-yang pool, with my current strength, I am still unable to sit in it and cultivate. When I break through to the chi refinement stage, I can try to sit in the eye of the pool. Perhaps I can use it to pass the blood tribulation of the physical body. Yi Guchen looked at the center of the ice and fire yin-yang pool. The eye of the pool surged with the extreme power of ice and fire. Its energy was far from what the surrounding water could compare to. With Yi Guchen's current strength, even with the suppression of the thunder tribulation sword, the power of ice and fire would instantly cause his body to collapse. Only by using vigorous true qi to protect his body could he endure some of it. However, what made Yi Guchen feel slightly regretful was that after absorbing so much power of ice and fire, the blurry words on the thunder tribulation sword still did not appear clearly. Perhaps only the eye of the pool can provide enough energy to completely reveal the words on the thunder tribulation sword. Yi Guchen was very interested in the words. Just the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra alone had benefited him greatly. Now that there was another supreme technique that was about to appear, how could Yi Guchen not be curious? In addition, Yi Guchen did not plan to cultivate the marrow cleansing scripture, 9 Yin scripture, and 9 Yang divine art at the moment. Cultivating in the eye of the ice and fire yin-yang pool was the fastest. Moreover, Yi Guchen's strength had increased too much in such a short period of time. If he continued to advance rashly, it would instead cause his realm to become unstable, and he would need to settle down for a period of time. Yi Guchen also planned to heal the sword vein that he had cultivated from the Universal Sword Codex after a period of time when his realm stabilized. Now that my strength has improved, it's time to go there. Yi Guchen's origin ring flashed and a blood-red token appeared in his hand. The word blood was engraved on the token. In the Saint Origin dynasty, any warrior would be familiar with this token. This was the blood order of the Blood Listening Tower. The Bloodthirst Tower was a colossus that resided in the shadows of the Saint Origin dynasty. It was an organization made up of killers and assassins. They were the Grim Reaper in the shadows, the messengers from hell. Blood Listening Tower wasn't originally called Blood Listening Tower. It had an elegant name, Snow Listening Tower. However, what the Tingxue house heard was not snow, but blood. In the end, it became known as the Bloodthirsty Tower. It could be said that the Bloodthirst Tower was one of the top forces in the Saint Origin dynasty. Even the imperial family of the Saint Origin dynasty was wary of them. The reason why Yi Guchen had the blood order of the Bloodthirst Tower was because an envoy from the Bloodthirst Tower had come to invite Yi Guchen to join the Bloodthirst Tower after he had obtained the title of Young Sword Master. However, at that time, Yi Guchen was a young man with a righteous heart. How could he join such a dark and bloody organization? In the end, the matter was left unsettled. However, the current Yi Guchen was a sword demon. He was interested in everything related to the sword. As for why he wanted to join the Bloodthirst Tower, it was because there was a secret place in the Bloodthirst Tower called the 18 Blood Prison. It was said that one could comprehend the Azura sword intent after passing through the 18 Blood Prison. In this world, There was a saying about sword intent and sword Dao among the sword cultivators. Sword intent was the cornerstone of sword Dao. Comprehending sword intent could be integrated into one's swordsmanship. It could also be combined with cultivation techniques and martial arts of compatible attributes to unleash greater power. It could be said that sword intent was a concept that every sword cultivator wanted to comprehend. As for sword Dao, it could only be comprehended after the sword intent had been condensed to the extreme. Once one comprehended the sword Dao, one would be able to possess all sorts of unbelievable abilities in the sword Dao, and one would even be able to form a sword Dao domain that belongs solely to one. Such might was boundlessly formidable, and it was the supreme pursuit that all sword cultivators yearned for. However, not to mention sword Dao, even sword intent was in existence that was 1 in 10,000 among sword cultivators. The reason why Xia Yubing's reputation was so high was because the North River Sword King, Chu Donglu, was a terrifying expert who had comprehended sword intent. Since Xia Yubing had inherited the North River Sword King's legacy, she naturally had the opportunity to comprehend his sword intent. This was the truly terrifying part. Xia Yubing had once said that if she had used a trace of sword intent, Yi Guchen would definitely not have been able to block it. And now, Yi Guchen was very interested in the sword Dao of this world. In his previous life, Dugu Wubai had comprehended a total of 4 sword Daos. Using the crepe myrtle flexible sword to comprehend the hard and soft sword Dao. Using the black iron heavy sword to comprehend the edgeless sword Dao. Using plants as swords to comprehend the myriad sword Dao. Using no moves to defeat moves to comprehend the selfless sword Dao. Unfortunately, Yi Guchen's current cultivation was too low. He hadn't even reached the divine soul realm. Naturally, he couldn't use these sword Daos for the time being. Moreover, these sword Daos needed to be comprehended anew before he could fully comprehend them. If I can comprehend the Azura sword intent, I will be able to understand the profoundness of this world's sword Dao. It won't be impossible for me to condense the Azura sword Dao in the future. Yi Guchen was a sword maniac. He naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity to comprehend sword intent. Fortunately, the blood token didn't have an expiration date. At any time, as long as he used the blood token as a token to send a message, an envoy from the blood listening tower would come. However, before that, Yi Guchen still had something to do. He still lacked 900 crystal jades to gather the 3,000 crystal jades required for the Calamity Dust Sword. It seems that I still have to stay in the Cloud Valley mountain range for a few days. Yi Guchen lightly smiled. Roar! In a dense forest in the central region of the Cloud Valley mountain range, a scarlet cloud leopard roared and let out a painful wail. On its body, sword marks were smooth and sharp, as if they were carved. They were very delicate. The scarlet cloud leopard was a rank 2 demonic beast. Even an ordinary Essence Realm warrior would die if he faced it. Only those geniuses in the Essence Realm could contend with it. Opposite the scarlet cloud leopard, Yi Guchen stood calmly with the Calamity Dust in his hand. If it was before, this rank 2 demonic beast would have been a big threat to him. But now, Yi Guchen had the Vajra body. Even the sharp claws of the scarlet cloud leopard could only scratch a very shallow wound. It was impossible for it to kill him. I'll use you to train my swordsmanship. Yi Guchen swung his sword again. However, the trajectory of this sword was very mysterious. It didn't target the scarlet cloud leopard. Instead, it resonated with the air in midair. Streaks of transparent ripples spread out like waves. If Bei Dangui was here, he would definitely recognize that this was the Bei family's incomplete spiritual level swordsmanship. Vacuum sword wave. 18 layers, 19 layers. As Yi Guchen muttered to himself, the ripples swept toward the scarlet cloud leopard. Although the sword wave didn't have the same lethality as the sword chi, the scarlet cloud leopard's body suddenly stiffened and trembled. The terrifying part of the vacuum sword wave was its vibration power. When the enemy fell into the range of the vacuum sword wave, their internal organs, blood, and veins would all vibrate due to the resonance. The vibrations would become more and more intense as the number of waves increased. In the end, it could even shatter the enemy's internal organs and bones. Moreover, this swordsmanship could ignore most defenses. However, It was also because of this that it was extremely difficult to cultivate the vacuum sword wave. One had to grasp the trajectory of the sword move and the vibration of the void. It was very difficult to adapt. Even for Bei Dangui, it was very difficult to cultivate the vacuum sword wave. If he knew that Yi Guqin had cultivated the vacuum sword wave to 19 layers in such a short period of time, he would definitely be shocked speechless. 20 layers. As Yi Guqin shouted, he used the last sword move. 20 layers. Puff. The scarlet cloud leopard fell to the ground. Its body twitched and viscous blood flowed out of its 7 orifices. Yi Guqin went forward and used his sword to cut open the beast's body and took out its monster core. This was already the 5th rank 2 monster Yi Guqin had killed. I have cultivated the vacuum sword wave to the small success level, but this swordsmanship can only be cultivated to the 30th layer at most. If I want to break through the 30th layer, I have to find the complete swordsmanship. Yi Guqin frowned. The Bei family's swordsmanship wasn't complete. If it was the complete vacuum sword wave, Yi Guqin thought, it would definitely not be weaker than the boundless heaven sword art. This is the 5th rank 2 monster. If I kill a few more, I can get 900 crystal jades and pay off Jie Chen's debt. Yi Guqin thought. He was going to find a few more rank 2 monster beasts. At this moment, in the forest not far away, several monster auras surrounded them. They were all rank 2 monster beasts. Along with the monster auras, there were several figures running away in panic. They were Shanmu, Suya, and several members of the Flaming Red Squad. Acquaintances. Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows, but this time he didn't wear a mask. Chapter 22. Damn it! Damn it! The Thunderstorm Squad is so despicable. They led us into a trap, causing a total of 4 rank 2 monster beasts to chase us. Shanmu, who was running away quickly, cursed. Big brother Shanmu, what should we do? We can't get rid of these 4 monster beasts. On the side, a short-haired, delicate girl with a flushed face, due to strenuous exercise, spoke in a hurried tone. It was Suya. What else can we do? It's dangerous to deal with 1 rank 2 monster beast, let alone 4. Shanmu was also helpless. Several members of the Flaming Red Squad had already died. Roar. Behind them, the monster Chi soared into the sky. A golden ring python suddenly swooped down from the dense canopy, directly biting the upper body of a member of the Flaming Red Squad and swallowing him into its belly. He didn't even have time to scream. Lei Zhan, damn it! Shanmu turned his head and cursed, but his running did not stop at all. On the other side, a dark shadow demon wolf was rushing over, and a 100-legged centipede was moving quickly close to the ground. The rustling sound was frightening. The goal of these 2 monster beasts was Suya. Big brother Shanmu, save me! Suya cried out. With her cultivation, a rank 2 monster beast was enough to tear her to pieces. Suddenly, in the sky in front of Suya, a blood-red giant eagle swooped down like a blood arrow. Its wide blood-red wings cut through the air, making ear-piercing sonic booms. Not good, it's a blood falcon. Shanmu's eyes suddenly froze, but he had no choice. With his strength, he could not stop a blood falcon at full speed. Even if he stepped forward to block it, he would only lose 1 more life. Seeing the blood falcon almost instantly rushing in front of her, Suya could even clearly see the sharp beak of the blood falcon, which was like a blood blade. The next moment, the sharp beak would penetrate her delicate body. Whoosh! Suya closed her eyes and waited for death, but she only felt a sharp airflow passing in front of her. Was she dead? Why didn't she feel any pain? Suya was puzzled and slowly opened her eyes. Then her eyes froze in an instant. There was a sword in front of him, a simple yet sharp sword. It was covered with lightning runes, and there were weapon veins flickering on the body of the sword. It looked very mysterious. Suya was no stranger to this sword, because she had seen someone use it not too long ago. It was the mysterious masked man who had killed Bei Ling. It's actually you, Suya exclaimed in surprise. The young man in front of him had slender eyebrows, handsome eyes, and an indifferent expression. Moreover, Suya felt that this face was somewhat familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere before. This youth was naturally Yi Guqin. In front of Yi Guqin, the blood falcon, whose wings were 3 meters wide, had its beak cut off by Yi Guqin's sword. blood flowed out incessantly. At the same time, the demonic black shadow wolf and the 100-legged centipede, the two rank 2 demonic beasts, also pounced forward. Get out of my way! Yi Guchen's profound qi vibrated and shook Suya, Shanmu, and the others away. He is the masked man who killed Bei Ling. He has broken through to the profound qi realm in such a short time, and his cultivation level is even higher than mine. Shanmu was in disbelief. This cultivation speed was beyond his imagination. Brother Shanmu, don't you feel that this face is somewhat familiar? Suya was a little confused. Yeah, I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Shanmu frowned and pondered. Just as Suya, Shanmu, and the others retreated to a safe distance, Yi Guchen faced the 4 rank 2 demonic beasts alone. The golden ring giant python also surrounded him from behind. 4 rank 2 demonic beasts. Brother Shanmu, should we go and help him? Suya was a little worried. With our strength, we would only be a burden to him if we went up. Shanmu sighed. It had only been a while, but Yi Guchen's cultivation level had already left them behind. 4 rank 2 demonic beasts? Just nice to test my current strength. Rank 2 demonic beasts could easily kill an ordinary profound qi realm martial artist. Unless one was a genius in the profound qi realm, one would be severely injured, if not killed by a rank 2 demonic beast alone. However, Yi Guchen wanted to fight against 4 rank 2 demonic beasts alone. It was crazy. The injured blood falcon was the first to launch an attack. A pair of blood wings spread open. They were as sharp as blades as they slashed towards Yi Guchen's head. Yi Guchen held the calamity dust sword and poured his profound qi into it, lighting up 18 vessel meridians. For Yi Guchen, whose cultivation level had skyrocketed, it was not difficult for him to activate the vessel meridians with all his strength. The calamity dust sword had 26 vessel meridians in total, but 18 vessel meridians were enough. After all, Yi Guchen only wanted to test his own strength. He did not want to borrow too much power from the spiritual inscription weapon. Under the amplification of the calamity dust, Yi Guchen pointed his sword, which was the most ordinary piercing moon sword technique. An ear-piercing sound of metal clashing came from the sword and the feather. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows. The blood falcon's feather was not weaker than an upper-grade spirit weapon. At the same time, a black shadow, as fast as lightning, attacked Yi Guchen from behind. Be careful, Suya suddenly shouted from not far away. Humph. Yi Guchen coldly snorted. The sword momentum suddenly changed, vibrating with the void and resonating with it. Transparent ripples spread out in all directions. It was the vacuum sword wave. No matter if it was the blood falcon, shadow demon wolf, 100-legged centipede, or golden ring giant python, after falling into the range of the vacuum sword wave, the beasts' bodies suddenly froze, and their agility slowed down. Yi Guchen flipped his hand and used the Aurora Sword Technique's special skill Aurora's Passing. In an instant, an aurora flashed, and its speed was actually several times faster than the Shadow Demon Wolf. The Shadow Demon Wolf was known for its speed. In terms of speed alone, few ordinary rank 3 demonic beasts could compare. But now, the Aurora Sword Technique's special skill directly pierced through the Shadow Demon Wolf's head. 10 layered waves. Yi Guchen's sword move changed again. 10 layers of transparent sword wave swept out, and the other 3 demonic beasts' bodies shook violently. Then, Yi Guchen's eyes flashed, and another 10 layers of sword wave swept out. The most terrifying thing was that this 10 layers of sword wave and the previous 10 layers of sword wave actually overlapped. It was equivalent to 20 layers of sword wave being blasted out in one go. This was the special skill that Yi Guchen had comprehended after cultivating the vacuum sword wave to minor accomplishment, overlapping waves. The sword wave was like a tidal wave, stacked together, and instantly exploded with a powerful vibration force. Puff! The bodies of the 3 rank 2 demonic beasts were all blown away by the overlapping wave's sword wave. Under the 20 layers of sword wave, the most fragile 100-legged centipede's carapace was directly shattered, revealing the flesh and blood that had long been eroded by the vibration. The blood falcon was also shaken to the brink of death, barely holding on. As for the golden ring giant python, its body was flexible, so it suffered the least damage, but it was still a little better than the other two demonic beasts. This such a terrifying swordsmanship. Shanmu, Suya, and the others were all dumbfounded. If Yi Guqin used this swordsmanship against Bei Ling again, they were sure that Bei Ling would definitely not be able to last more than one round. Such a terrifying swordsmanship, I remember who he is. Suddenly, a member of the Flaming Red Squad seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes revealed a deep shock. Who is he? Shanmu and Suya asked hurriedly. The Cloud Valley mountain range was still far from the Milky Way province. In addition, the Xia family and the Bei family tried their best to stop the news from leaking out, so there were not many people who knew about Yi Guqin's deeds in the Xia family. As for killing Bei Ling, there were even fewer people who knew about it. Young Sword Grandmaster Yi Guqin. As soon as this was said, Shan Mu and the others were stunned. The head of the 7 geniuses of the Milky Way province, the Sword Grandmaster, who had the talent of a 7th-grade genius, Yi Guqin. I didn't expect the masked little brother to be him. Shanmu sighed. Suya's little mouth was even wider. Thinking about how she had ridiculed Yi Guqin before, she felt a little ashamed. But I've heard that Yi Guqin is a despicable, vile character. He sneak attacked Xia Yubing in the Sword King Mystery Realm, and had his cultivation crippled. But now Shanmu was puzzled. The battle prowess that Yi Guqin had displayed did not resemble that of a cripple at all. I believe that he would not do such a thing. There must be a misunderstanding, Suya said firmly, staring at Yi Guqin with her beautiful eyes. With one sword, he could kill a rank 2 demonic beast, and seriously injure 2 rank 2 demonic beasts. Even those geniuses, if they did not break through to the Qi refining realm, would find it difficult to do so. As if feeling the crisis of life and death, the remaining Blood Falcon and Golden Ring Giant Python hissed at the same time. And at the same time, demon aura surged out of their bodies. Oh no, those demonic beasts are going to go all out. Shanmu's eyes were dignified. Oh, the last move? Yi Guqin did not dodge and attacked again. When the sword came out, its trajectory was mysterious and unpredictable, interweaving into a sword net. Every trajectory was perfect, as if it included thousands of things. Boundless Heaven Sword Art. This swordsmanship was passed down to him by his father. Even among the spiritual level swordsmanship, it was the best, so it was very difficult to cultivate. When Yi Guqin performed the Boundless Heaven Sword Art, the Blood Falcon's demon aura burst out. Its blood feathers fell off and turned into a blood blade storm, sweeping toward Yi Guqin. The Golden Ring Giant Python opened its mouth, activated its poison sac with its life essence and blood, and spat out a poisonous breath containing strong poisonous gas. Boom! The collision was earth-shattering. The surrounding trees were broken, stones were thrown into the air, and cracks appeared on the ground. In the smoke and dust, Shanmu and the others looked over. There was only one person and one sword. On the opposite side, the Blood Falcon and the Golden Ring Giant Python had been cut into pieces by the Boundless Heaven Sword Art. It's a pity that the Boundless Heaven Sword Art is only one step away from the basic level. At that time, I can comprehend some special moves. Even grandmasters in the Qi refining realm will not dare to underestimate me. Yi Guqin frowned. He did not expect that it would be so difficult to reach the basic level swordsmanship. But if some sword cultivators knew about it, they would vomit blood in anger. In order to reach the basic level swordsmanship, even the most common inferior level swordsmanship, it would take a few years to reach the basic level. Only extremely talented sword cultivators could do it. The Boundless Heaven Sword Art was a superior level swordsmanship, and it was dozens of times more difficult to comprehend than the inferior level swordsmanship. A genius sword cultivator would probably spend 10 years to comprehend the basic level swordsmanship. And Yi Guqin had only started practicing the Boundless Heaven Sword Art for a month. With such talent in sword principle, all the sword cultivator sects in the 9 regions would fight to recruit Yi Guqin as a disciple. After dealing with the 4 demonic beasts, Yi Guqin also collected some of the valuable body parts. Together with Yi Guqin's previous harvest, it was more than enough to sell for 900 crystal jades. Just as Yi Guqin finished sorting out the spoils, Xia came forward and said nervously with a flushed face, "Thank Thank you for saving me, young Master Yi. It's no problem. Yi Guchen waved his hand and did not care. Young Master Yi, I have offended you before. Please forgive me. Suya suddenly bowed to Yi Guchen. It's okay. Yi Guchen nodded slightly, and then used the willow catkin wind to float away. Suya was left behind, and looked at the direction, where Yi Guchen left with a sense of loss. Alas, he is not in the same world as us. In the future, he will climb to a higher place. Shan Mu patted Suya's shoulder and sighed. Suya suddenly felt an indescribable sense of anxiety. Chapter 23. After Yi Guchen returned to Merchant River City, the first thing he did was to head to the underground market and sell the cores of mini rank 2 monsters, as well as some valuable body parts. He obtained over 1,200 crystal jades. Apart from the 900 crystal jades he used to pay off his debt, he still had 300 crystal jades left. He really couldn't be called wealthy. While selling his goods, Yi Guchen also heard some news. After Xia Yubing, the second of the 7 prodigies of the Milky Way province, Song Daozhen, had also broken through to the Qi refining realm and had a match with Xia Yubing. Originally, everyone thought it would be a fierce battle, but the result was shocking. Song Daozhen had suffered a crushing defeat. It was practically a one-sided defeat. From the mouths of some cultivators who had watched the battle, Yi Guchen learned that at the beginning, Xia Yubing and Song Daozhen had been exchanging blows, countering each other's attacks. In the middle of the battle, Song Daozhen had actually used a spirit-level sword art, and it was no weaker than Xia Yubing's glacier sword art. But afterwards, when Xia Yubing unleashed her sword intent, it was a crushing defeat. Within 3 moves, Song Daozhen vomited blood and fell to the ground. It was also this battle that allowed Xia Yubing to solidify her position as the top prodigy of the Milky Way province. After the battle, she had declared that if Yi Guchen dared to appear in the 10 prefectures elite gathering half a year later, she would kill him with a single strike. Yi Guchen had been cultivating in the Cloud Valley Mountain all this time, so he naturally hadn't shown himself. As a result, it was rumored that Yi Guchen had long since hidden himself in some corner. Unleash my sword intent and defeat Song Daozhen in 3 moves, Yi Guchen muttered, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. He was even more interested in this world's sword intent and way of the sword. I wonder if the 4 ways of the sword I comprehended in my previous life are more powerful, or if the way of the sword of this world is more powerful. Yi Guchen was weighing, and at the same time needed a reference. The Shura sword intent in the Bloodthirsty Tower was the best reference. Looks like I have to join the Bloodthirsty Tower and obtain a chance to enter the 18 Prison of Blood. I wonder if the Shura sword intent or Xia Yubing's sword intent is more powerful. Yi Guchen was very curious. There would be a battle between him and Xia Yubing in the end, and this battle was clearly not too far away. Yi Guchen knew that the 10 prefectures elite meeting was a competition between the geniuses of the 10 prefectures of the Saint Origin dynasty. Previously, Yi Guchen was the leader of the prodigies, but that was only limited to the Milky Way prefecture. As for the Saint Origin dynasty, the 10 great prefectures were extremely vast. There were countless geniuses and experts vying for supremacy. Even though Xia Yubing had inherited the sword intent of the North River Sword King and was extremely talented, she might not be able to suppress all the geniuses of the 10 prefectures. The purpose of the 10 prefectures elite meeting was to allow the various major powers, sects, and institutions of the Saint Origin dynasty to select their disciples. The geniuses of each of the 10 prefectures would do their best to fight in order to win the favor of the major forces and obtain better cultivation resources. The 10 prefectures elite gathering? Only those who have reached the Qi refining stage are qualified to participate. There's still half a year's time. With my abilities, it shouldn't be difficult. Yi Guchen was also very interested in the 10 prefectures elite gathering. He was originally a martial arts fanatic and liked to compete with others to hone his swordsmanship. The 10 prefectures elite meeting was undoubtedly the best opportunity. However, there was still half a year's time before the 10 prefectures elite meeting, so Yi Guchen wasn't in a hurry. With enough crystal jades, Yi Guchen directly headed to the Heavenly Forging Pavilion. At the entrance of the heavenly forging pavilion, Yi Guchen suddenly stopped in his tracks. Ouch! An old and hoarse voice sounded. In the next moment, an old man who reeked of alcohol rolled out of the heavenly forging pavilion like a rolling gourd. Two brawny men crossed their arms and looked at the old man with disgust. There was also a beautiful maid who covered her nose and said in disgust, "Where did this old drunkard come from? How dare he come to my heavenly forging pavilion and act stupid? I beg you, old man, I'll sell this hammer to you in exchange for some crystal jades to buy me some wine." The old man's hair was white, and he reeked of alcohol. His dry and rough hands held a pitch-black hammer. "Humph! You dare to ask for 10,000 crystal jades for a broken hammer? Why don't you go and rob it?" This maid was the one who received Yi Guchen last time. "Ah, I feel uncomfortable without wine." The old drunkard rolled on the ground. The sharp-eyed Yi Guchen noticed that the old man's hands seemed to be disabled and were not very nimble. Although the sword demon's temperament was indifferent, this kind of small matter was just a small matter. He walked up to the old drunkard and put down 10 crystal jades. "I can't buy good wine, but I can still buy a few dozen jars of ordinary strong wine," Yi Guchen casually said. "Why do you care about this old drunkard?" The maid wanted to say something, but her throat seemed to be choked by someone. After a long while she said, "Yi Guchen, no, young master Yi, you're here." The maid immediately put on a fawning smile. Last time, after knowing Yi Guchen's identity, she still hated and despised Yi Guchen. But now, she heard that Yi Guchen seemed to have started to cultivate again. Moreover, he did not die after receiving Xia Yubing's sword. He also had an abnormally strong aunt, who killed the Bei family's divine soul stage elder with a single finger. Moreover, because of their fear of Xian Su, the Bei family could only swallow their anger and not make any big moves. Naturally, they did not know that Xian Su had already left. After hearing all these things, the maid's attitude towards Yi Guchen changed completely. Yi Guchen did not care much about this. As for the old drunkard, he only glanced at Yi Guchen after receiving the 10 pieces of crystal jades. Then he left happily to drink. Yi Guchen did not ask for anything in return. It was just 10 crystal jades. After entering the heavenly forging pavilion, Chu Nanchun actually personally came to welcome him. When Yi Guchen handed over the 3,000 crystal jades, Chu Nanchun even tactfully declined. Yi Guchen secretly shook his head. As expected, strength was status. Having an aunt who could casually kill a divine soul stage cultivator, Yi Guchen also received the respect of others. This was the benefit of strength. However, Yi Guchen never liked to owe others, so he still handed the 3,000 crystal jades to Chu Nanchun. "Little friend Yi, there is less than a month left until the Battle of the Mine. Miss is looking for other candidates during this time, just in case. After all, I heard that Bei Dangui and Wang Cheng have already broken through to the qi refining stage. Of course, little friend Yi is still very strong." Chu Nanchun said kindly. Of course, this was only Chu Nanchun's compliment. For Yi Guchen to be able to receive Xia Yubing's sword, his strength was indeed not to be underestimated. However, in Chu Nanchun's eyes, he was still a bit lacking compared to those geniuses who had broken through to the qi refining stage. "I will definitely attend the appointment on time. The agreement will remain the same. If I am unable to win, I will return the Calamity Earth sword and pay the 5,000 crystal jades." Yi Guchen's tone was indifferent, but it was as if victory was already in his grasp. Chu Nanchun secretly sighed at Yi Guchen's overestimation of his own abilities, but on the surface he was still smiling. After leaving the heavenly forging pavilion, Yi Guchen arrived outside a shabby house in Shang River City. Yi Guchen knocked on the door, but no one answered. He casually pushed open the door and a bleak aura rushed over. The courtyard was filled with withered leaves, and an old servant was sweeping the withered leaves with a broom. "Old man, where is your master?" Yi Guchen asked. "Master? I don't know where he went." The old servant shook his head and continued sweeping the leaves. "Is that so? Then do you recognize this item?" Yi Guchen took out the blood listening tower's blood token. The old servant was somewhat puzzled. He opened his dim old eyes and said, "I don't recognize this item." "Oh, is that so? The dignified blood-listening tower's vice tower, Lord actually doesn't recognize the blood-listening tower's blood token? Yi Guchen's tone was playful. This old man does not know what young master is talking about. The old servant shook his head. In the next moment, Yi Guchen attacked with his sword. As the sword tip vibrated, 20 layers of sword wave overlapped and spread out with a loud bang. Vacuum sword wave special skill, overlapping waves. A transparent sword wave rippled out and spread throughout the entire house, shaking countless withered leaves. As the withered leaves fluttered in the air, the old servant still stood there calmly. Then, a gust of wind blew over, and the withered leaves that filled the sky turned into fine powder at the same time, drifting away with the wind without leaving a trace. As for the old servant who was also within the range of the vacuum sword wave, not even the corner of his clothes was blown away. The old servant threw down the broom and clapped his hands. As expected of the former young sword master Yi Guchen, your grasp and control of swordsmanship has left me in awe. I did not resist at all. But the sword wave did not even touch me. The old servant sighed. The withered leaves around him were all pulverized. Only the old servant did not have a trace of power. This meant that Yi Guchen's control of swordsmanship had reached a fine and precise level. It's just a small trick. How could it catch the Vice Tower Lord's eye? Yi Guchen cupped his hands slightly. The inconspicuous old servant in front of him was the Vice Tower Lord of Blood-Listening Tower, the Broken Sword Elder. He was an expert with unfathomable strength. The reason why Yi Guchen knew that the Broken Sword Elder was here was because the Blood-Listening Tower's envoy had told him that the Broken Sword Elder admired him greatly and wanted to invite him to join Blood-Listening Tower and become his disciple. Yi Guchen, I originally wanted you to join Blood-Listening Tower, but you ignored me. Now that you've come, the sword vein has been destroyed, and the innate sword embryo has been taken away. I originally wanted to ignore you, but the swordsmanship you displayed just now made me hesitate. The Broken Sword Elder sighed. It's my honor to receive the Vice Tower Lord's favor. However, the reason I want to join Blood-Listening Tower is for the Azura Sword intent. Yi Guchen was very straightforward and did not hide anything. Haha, the Azura Sword intent. The Broken Sword Elder laughed loudly, as if he had heard something funny. Why is the Vice Tower Lord laughing? Yi Guchen frowned. I'm laughing at you for being too naive. There are quite a few people who joined my Blood-Listening Tower because of the Azura Sword intent. However, there is not a single person who has managed to pass through the 18-blood prison other than the tower head. The crippled Sword Elder shook his head. Is it really that difficult? Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly. The Blood-Listening Tower Lord could be described as extremely mysterious. Very few people had seen his true appearance. They did not even know his name or gender. The 18-blood prisons are filled with tests. Cultivation is only one aspect. The most difficult test is the soul and will. If one's will is not firm enough, not only will they not be able to comprehend the Azura Sword intent, they will even suffer a backlash and become a madman who only knows how to kill. The Broken Sword Elder sneered. You won't know until you try. Yi Guchen was not afraid at all. There's only one way to join Blood-Listening Tower, and that's to defeat her. The Broken Sword Elder pointed behind Yi Guchen. A blood-red dagger silently stabbed towards the back of Yi Guchen's neck. Chapter 24. The attack was stealthy, sharp, and extremely fast. It was like a venomous snake hiding in the dark, killing with one strike. If it was an ordinary warrior in the Essence Realm, he would not have been able to react in time, and would have been killed instantly. However, Yi Guchen was different. His true identity was the invincible sword demon. He was more familiar with swords than he was with himself. Ordinary warriors would not have noticed the subtle sound of the sword cutting through the wind. However, Yi Guchen's ears were sharp enough to catch it. This was completely due to Yi Guchen's familiarity with swords. Clang! Yi Guchen used the willow catkin wind body technique. His body swayed like a willow tree. At the same time, the 18 vessel meridians on his tribulation dust lit up to increase his strength. A sword radiance was as fast as lightning, and collided with the fatal attack. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing was heard. Yi Guchen felt a surge of vital energy vibrating along the edge of the sword. Qi Refinement Grandmaster? It was obvious that the attacker was a Qi Refinement Grandmaster. However, Yi Guchen had the King Kong celestial body and the support of the Dracophant force. Even if he faced an ordinary warrior in the Qi Refinement realm, he would still be able to fight. As the two swords collided, Yi Guchen and the attacker retreated at the same time. He actually managed to block this attack. A voice that was clearly filled with astonishment rang out. However, what surprised Yi Guchen was that the voice belonged to a cold female voice. A female assassin? Yi Guchen squinted his eyes and looked at the sword. It was a young girl in black. Her delicate body was wrapped tightly in the dark night clothes, outlining her graceful curves. She held a jade sword that glowed with blood in her hand. Half of her face was covered by a black mask, revealing only a pair of cold eyes. She stared coldly at Yi Guchen. There was a hint of seriousness in her eyes. He actually blocked Nightingale's attack with his Essence Realm cultivation. Although Nightingale only broke through to the Qi Refinement realm a few days ago, she used the traceless swordsmanship that I taught her. Even the crippled sword elder, who had always been calm and indifferent, stared at Yi Guchen with his pair of old, dim eyes. He had thought that Yi Guchen's sword vein had been destroyed, and he had lost the congenital sword embryo. Yi Guchen's cultivation had dropped, and he would become a complete loser. Even if he were to recultivate, he would not be able to reach the same level as before. However, Yi Guchen's strength far exceeded his expectations. It was simply unbelievable that someone at the 5th level of the Qi Refinement realm could fight. On the other hand, Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows when he heard Nightingale's name. Nightingale of Tingxue Tower, ranked 37th on the Heaven Pride list? Asked Yi Guchen. Nightingale remained silent, which could be considered as an answer. The heavens, 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 heavens is heavens, 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 heaven. The heavens to heavens, heavens is heavens is. Before Yi Guchen was crippled, he was ranked 5th on the St. Yuan Heaven's Pride ranking. Perhaps his cultivation level was not at the peak at that time, but he was a grade 7 Heaven's Pride, and possessed the innate sword embryo. Coupled with his sword vein, his future potential was limitless. However, after Yi Guchen was crippled, his name was no longer on the St. Yuan Heaven's Pride ranking. Xia Yubing took his place. Although she was only a grade 5 Heaven's Pride, she had inherited the North River Sword King's inheritance, comprehended sword intent, and defeated Song Daojun to take the 5th place on the Sheng Yuan Heaven's Pride list. It could be said that the St. Yuan Heaven's Pride ranking was the most eye-catching existence in the entire Saint Origin Empire. Although Nightingale's ranking on the St. Yuan Heaven's Pride list wasn't very high, the Saint Origin Empire was vast and her name was enough to prove her talent and strength. Yi Guchen, you've displayed enough strength. You're only at the Qi Refinement realm. You're qualified to be an Iron Mask Assassin in the Blood Listening Tower. A Silver Mask Assassin is a Divine Spirit Realm expert. A Gold Mask Assassin is an expert who has broken through the 4th stage of the Mortal Evolution realm. Although you haven't reached the Qi Refinement realm, your battle strength is no weaker than a Qi Refinement realm expert. You're qualified to be an Iron Mask Assassin, said the Broken Sword Old Man. Thank you, Deputy Housemaster. Yi Guchen cupped his hands together. Also, I want to ask if you're still willing to become my disciple. The Broken Sword Elder was truly interested in Yi Guchen. A young man who had experienced such a setback was able to rise up again. Even a cold-blooded and heartless killer like him couldn't help but feel a sense of appreciation for this talent. Nightingale's eyes narrowed when she heard the Broken Sword Old Man's words. Although she was the Broken Sword Old Man's disciple, she had only succeeded after going through countless trials. Now, the Broken Sword Old Man had actually taken the initiative to ask Yi Guchen to become his disciple. This comparison made Nightingale somewhat gloomy. Even her gaze towards Yi Guchen turned colder. Although the Broken Sword Old Man was the Deputy House Master of the Blood Listening Tower, his strength was undeniable. He was definitely one of the top existences in the Saint Origin Empire. Even some Heaven's Prides would be more than willing to accept such an expert as his disciple. However, Yi Guchen only smiled and cupped his hands together. Thank you, Deputy Housemaster. Unfortunately, I'm not fated to be your disciple. This was a tactful rejection. As the sword demon, Yi Guchen naturally had the cold and arrogant demeanor of a sword demon. Although his cultivation was at the bottom of this world, Yi Guchen was confident that not many people were qualified to be his master when it came to the sword. Even if the broken sword old man's cultivation was much higher than his, it wouldn't be enough. What an arrogant brat. The broken sword old man snorted coldly as an inexplicable light surged in his eyes. Yi Guchen was keenly aware of this emotion. Killing intent. The broken sword old man actually wanted to kill him. Humph. Nightingale also snorted coldly as she looked at Yi Guchen, as though he was a dead man. Although the broken sword old man looked like an old servant, he was the deputy house master of the blood listening tower. Killing someone was more natural to him than eating or drinking. However, just as the broken sword old man narrowed his eyes, as though he was about to make a move, the sound of a flute could be heard. The sound of the flute was bitter and sorrowful. It was as though a beautiful woman had her heart broken and was thinner than a yellow flower. This flute sound. Yi Guchen took a deep breath as shock appeared in his eyes for the first time. Sword intent. The sound of the flute actually contained a trace of sword intent. After all, how difficult was it to carry sword insight with a strand of the flute? Only a true expert in the sword Tao that had comprehended sword insight to the acme of perfection was capable of casually placing sword insight on everything in the world. In his previous life, the sword demon Duga Wubai had reached this level. He could place sword intent on plants, and was sharper than a divine sword. He had defeated all the sword principle experts in the world. Expert. The person playing the flute was a true sword principle expert. Yi Guchen could not help but want to find the source of the flute sound. However, the sound of the flute seemed to have come from beyond the heavens. He could not find the source at all. Not only is he an expert in the sword principle, but his cultivation level is also extremely high. Yi Guchen sighed. After being in this world for so long, it was the first time that someone in the sword principle had reached the level of sword intent that he had in his previous life. Housemaster. When the sound of the flute sounded, the crippled sword elder, who was filled with killing intent earlier, instantly knelt on the ground like a frosted eggplant. The infamous deputy house master of the Bloodthirst Tower in the Saint Origin dynasty, an expert of his generation, was trembling as he knelt on the ground. He was like a mouse that had encountered a lion. It's the house master of the Bloodthirst Tower. Yi Guchen was surprised and then relieved. The house master of the Bloodthirst Tower was extremely mysterious. No one had seen his true appearance, and no one knew his cultivation level. However, what puzzled Yi Guchen was why the crippled sword elder was so afraid of the house master of the Bloodthirst Tower. Logically speaking, although the deputy house master's status was not as high as the house master's, he was definitely not a servant. However, Yi Guchen could not figure it out for the time being. After a while, the sound of the flute dissipated as if it had never sounded. The withered leaves in the courtyard turned into dust at that moment. The crippled sword elder stood up and exhaled with lingering fear. He looked at Yi Guchen without a trace of killing intent. Instead, he looked a little complicated. Yi Guchen, you are very lucky to have been recognized by the house master. From now on, you are an assassin of the Bloodthirst Tower. Everyone in the Bloodthirst Tower has a nickname. What is your nickname? Nickname? Yi Guchen muttered. Let's call you Sword Demon. Chapter 25. Hanyan House was the most prosperous and famous brothel in Shang River City. At night, the moon hung high in the sky, and the night breeze was chilly. A young master dressed in luxurious clothing walked out of Hanyan residence, drunk and dispirited. He was Sun Shijin, the genius of the Sun family. The Sun family was second only to the 5 great families in the Sky River province. Sun Shijin was a genius at the 9th level of the Essence realm, and was close to breaking through to the Qi refinement realm. When he passed by the corner of an alley, a gust of cold wind blew and made Sun Shijin shiver. It's so cold. Sun Shijin shrank back. In the next moment, Sun Shijin's body froze and his eyes widened. No, I'm an expert at the 9th level of the essence realm. I'm immune to both heat and cold. How can I feel cold? Swoosh! A dark sword shadow flashed. It wasn't as bright as the sword radiance, but it was definitely fatal. Sun Shijin, who was at the 9th level of the essence realm, had just reacted when his head flew into the air. In the last moments of his consciousness, he saw a sword glowing with blood-red light, as well as a black figure wearing a blood-red mask. It's Blood Listening Tower. Sword Demon. Sun Shijin's head rolled to the ground, unable to make a sound. 32. The figure with the bloody mask murmured. The person under the mask was Yi Guchen. Compared to before, Yi Guchen now had a more sinister and cold aura around him. After joining Blood Listening Tower more than 10 days ago, he received the necessities of all assassins. Black clothes, a mask, a superb spirit weapon, the flying guillotine, and a Xiantian sword art, the shadow sword art. With Yi Guchen's strength, he should only be able to wear the iron mask. However, the broken sword elder gave Yi Guchen a very special bloody mask. The shape of the mask was quite ferocious, like a demon from hell. This was in line with his nickname Sword Demon. The broken sword elder once said that the mask was given to him by the Lord of Blood Listening Tower. As for Yi Guchen, he became the only blood mask assassin in the Bloodthirst Tower apart from Iron Mask, Silver Mask, and Gold Mask. After killing Sun Shijin, Yi Guchen quietly arrived at a remote courtyard. This was the stronghold of Bloodthirst Tower in Shanghai City. As an assassin organization, the Bloodthirst Tower naturally didn't have a fixed base. Instead, they had strongholds in the 10 prefectures, which made it convenient for them to hand over missions and provide information. After entering the courtyard, Yi Guchen walked into the entrance hall and entered the side hall. He pressed a secret switch on the wall and entered a tunnel. After passing through several layers of formations, he arrived at an underground space. This was a spacious stone room, and there were many figures walking back and forth. These people were all dressed up as assassins of Bloodthirst Tower. At the end of the stone room, there were many jade slips. Each jade slip represented a new mission. According to the difficulty of the mission, the jade slips were divided into white, yellow, and red. White jade slips were for ordinary Iron Mask assassins, yellow for Silver Mask assassins, and red for Gold Mask assassins. Above the red jade slips were the blood-colored jade slips. Those were the most dangerous missions. Usually, many Gold Mask assassins would take the lead, and many Silver Mask assassins and Iron Mask assassins would complete the mission together. Of course, blood-colored jade slips hadn't appeared for a long time. Red jade slips were also very rare. Most of them were white jade slips, and there were only a few yellow ones. Yi Guchen came to this stronghold to hand over his mission. With Yi Guchen's arrival, his eye-catching blood-colored mask immediately attracted the attention of many assassins. It's Sword Demon. He's back after completing his mission. What a crazy guy. He's only been in the Bloodthirst Tower for a few days, but he's already completed 32 missions and stirred up a storm. His fame shouldn't be any less than Nightingale's. I think he's here for the 18 blood prisons. Only by filling the blood guillotine with blood can he get the chance to enter the 18 blood prisons. That's the 18 blood prisons. Unfortunately, with my ability, I don't know how long it'll take to fill the blood guillotine. Some of the surrounding assassins were discussing, but Yi Guchen didn't care at all. After joining the Bloodthirst Tower, Yi Guchen learned that the only requirement to enter the 18 blood prisons was to fill the blood guillotine to the brim. Yi Guchen studied the blood guillotine. It was made of a strange jade that could absorb a trace of the heart's blood essence. Every time the blood guillotine killed someone, it would absorb a trace of the heart's blood essence. If he wanted to enter the 18 blood prisons, he had to fill the blood guillotine completely with this blood essence. Right now, in Yi Guchen's flying guillotine, the 32 strands of essence and blood only occupied a small space inside the flying guillotine. It would take a long time for it to become a blood sword. Half a year. I must comprehend the Shura sword intent in half a year. Yi Guchen's eyes seemed to be stained with scarlet under the blood guillotine. He had to comprehend the Shura sword intent, and he had to bear the price. I'll take all of these missions. Yi Guchen stepped forward. The missions were distributed by a silver-masked assassin. Seeing Yi Guchen take another mission, the silver-masked assassin was secretly amazed. Although the missions were all white jade slips, it didn't mean that they could be completed easily. Yi Guchen's true cultivation was only at the 5th level of the essence realm, but he was already taking missions for the qi refining realm. An ordinary essence realm cultivator wouldn't even be qualified to take a mission. This sword demon is a madman. I really don't know who he is. The surrounding assassins sighed when they saw Yi Guchen take several more missions. They also didn't know the true identity of the sword demon. Apart from the Tower Master and Deputy Tower Master, only the 4 judges knew the identities of all the assassins in the Blood Listening Tower. After taking the missions, Yi Guchen left again. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, the legend of the Blood Listening Tower sword demon spread throughout the entire Shang River City. After all, he had killed so many people in such a short period of time without failing once. In addition, he wore a blood-colored mask that was different from ordinary Blood Listening Tower assassins. The title of Sword Demon hung over the Shang River City like a shadow. At this moment, Yi Guchen didn't take any more missions after handing in the missions. Instead, he returned to the small bamboo house outside the Shang River City, where Xian Su occasionally stayed. She had been gone for a long time, but there was still a faint fragrance in the house. Yi Guchen didn't have any other thoughts. He took out the Supreme Grade 100 Veins Blood Ginseng. The 100 Veins Blood Ginseng was as red as snow. Its dense roots were as complicated as the veins of a human body. Soon, he would have to fulfill his promise to help Chu Shiqing seize the Crystal Jade Mine. At that time, he would have to face the geniuses of the Bei family and the Wang family. Yi Guchen reckoned that it was very likely that he would have to face Bei Dangui or Wang Cheng. Both of them were among the 7 geniuses of the Sky River province. Although they were far inferior to Xia Yubing, they were still incomparable to ordinary geniuses. Yi Guchen was confident in himself, but it was always good to have more bargaining chips. Moreover, Yi Guchen was also very interested in the Universal Sword Codex. This was because this skill was almost entirely created for swordsmanship, the Myriad Sword Codex, and the Boundless Heaven Sword Art. All of this made Yi Guchen a little more curious about his father, that he had never met. This was because these sword techniques were definitely not something that ordinary forces could possess. Moreover, Yi Guchen was almost certain that his father, and he came from a sword cultivation force that specialized in sword cultivation. And this force was definitely not small. However, this was not what Yi Guchen needed to consider now. He swallowed the 100 Meridians Blood Ginseng, and felt a strange medicinal power flowing through his veins. There was no need to say much about ordinary veins, but when the medicinal power came into contact with the almost completely broken sword vein, it slowly seeped in. Yi Guchen immediately felt his entire body warm up, as if a piece of ice was gradually melting into warm water in his body. This was a sign that the withered and broken sword vein was slowly recovering. At the same time, Yi Guchen once again used the Myriad Sword Codex to help the sword vein recover. Although there was the assistance of a top-grade spiritual medicine, like the 100 Meridians Blood Ginseng, it was obvious that the sword vein's recovery could not be completed in a day or two. As time passed, the arranged battle between the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, the Bei family, and the Wang family finally arrived. At this moment, outside the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, Chu Shiqing and Chu Nanchun, who were dressed in light green clothes, were already preparing. Beside her stood a man and a woman. The man was dressed in white and had a handsome appearance. With his hands behind his back, he had the aura of a proud son of heaven. The other girl had a noble temperament and a snow-white neck like a proud phoenix. If Yi Guchen was here, he would definitely not be unfamiliar with her. This girl was Princess Yuanyang. Young Master Morong, Princess Yuanyang. I'll have to trouble the two of you this time. If you succeed, my Heavenly Forging Pavilion will definitely not treat the two of you unfairly. Chu Shiqing said gently. Miss Chu, don't worry. I, Morong Ming, will definitely help the Heavenly Forging Pavilion. Although the Bei family and the Wang family are not bad, my Morong family is not afraid. The man named Morong Ming's tone carried a faint arrogance, as if he did not care at all. When he said this, he faintly glanced at Princess Yuanyang from the corner of his eyes. The Morong family was a great family in the Beichen Mansion. Unlike the 5 great families in the Milky Way province, the Beichen Mansion only had 2 great families, the Morong family and the Situ family. If compared to a single family, regardless of whether it was the Morong family or the Situ family, their strength would definitely suppress any one of the 5 great families. In the 5 great families, Xiantian sword techniques were already considered core martial arts, and spirit-level sword techniques were even rarer. However, the 2 great families did not lack Xiantian sword techniques. Instead, they used spirit-level sword techniques as their core martial arts. From this, it could be seen that the 2 great families' strength surpassed the 5 great families in the Milky Way province. It was no wonder that Morong Ming had such an indifferent attitude. Moreover, Morong Ming was also one of the geniuses in the Beichen Mansion. His strength was not weaker than Bei Dangui and the others. As for Princess Yuanyang, she also slightly nodded and said, "Of course. Uncle once helped me forge the Scarlet Phoenix sword. This small favor should naturally be helped. Then I'll thank the 2 of you first." Chu Shiqing nodded and smiled. These 2 people were the backup plan that Chu Shiqing had left behind. Naturally, she would not place all her hopes on Yi Guchen. "Miss, Yi Guchen still hasn't arrived. Should we set off?" On the side, Chu Nanshan opened his mouth and said. Chu Shiqing frowned slightly. Hearing this name, Princess Yuanyang's beautiful red phoenix eyes twitched. Yi Guchen is actually coming. Chapter 26. Facing Princess Yuanyang's question, Chu Shiqing didn't comment. She also vaguely knew about Princess Yuanyang and Yi Guchen's deeds. Princess Yuanyang once watched the battle for the title of Young Sword Master. In that battle, Yi Guchen's sword was like a startled swan as he single-handedly defeated the 5 great sword geniuses one by one. That youth's demeanor was deeply engraved in Princess Yuanyang's heart. After that, Princess Yuanyang, who had a spoiled personality, took the initiative to pursue Yi Guchen. But at that time, Yi Guchen and Xia Yubing were a couple, so he could only tactfully refuse Princess Yuanyang's pursuit. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Over time, Princess Yuanyang's love turned to hate, so she said that she wanted Yi Guchen to be her sword attendant. Princess Yuanyang, the current Yi Guchen is not the same as before. He has already started to recultivate, and his cultivation is not bad. He blocked Xia Yubing's sword. Chu Shiqing said, Yi Guchen? I have also heard of him. He's just a fallen genius. Before Princess Yuanyang could say anything, Morong Ming sneered and said. He could feel that Princess Yuanyang cared a lot about Yi Guchen, so he felt a little sour in his heart. Morong Ming was very interested in Princess Yuanyang. After all, Princess Yuanyang's identity was extraordinary. She was the daughter of a mansion's master. If he could establish a relationship with her, Morong family's power would rise to another level. Yi Guchen, is he still coming? Princess Yuanyang was a little uninterested. If Yi Guchen came, she wouldn't mind taking him in as a sword attendant on the spot. He probably knows that he's not strong enough, so he doesn't dare to come. Morong Ming didn't shy away from sarcasm. We can't waste time. Let's go first. With the 2 of you here, victory shouldn't be a problem. Chu Shiqing waved her hand. She knew a little about Yi Guchen's character. Yi Guchen definitely wouldn't miss the appointment. Taking a step back, even if Yi Guchen knew that he was not strong enough, he would still fulfill his promise and return the Calamity Dust sword. The area around the Cloud Valley mountain range was filled with undulating mountain ridges. It was a desolate and barren land. Even the traces of demon beasts were rarely seen. It was practically a land devoid of life. In this region, there was a horseshoe-shaped valley. In this valley, 3 groups of people were facing each other. One of them was the Bei family and the Wang family. The 2 families stood on the same side, obviously choosing to join hands to fight against the Heavenly Forging Pavilion. After all, the Heavenly Forging Pavilion's foundation was not weak, and if it was any other family, it would be difficult for them to swallow this crystal jade load alone. The other force was naturally the Heavenly Forging Pavilion. Not long after, a group of people arrived at Horsehoof Valley. The ones in the lead were Chu Shiqing's group. Miss, someone from the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, had already stepped forward to receive her. Chu Shiqing nodded slightly and looked to the other side. A few young figures from the Bei clan and Wang clan came into view. Two of them were the most eye-catching. One of them was a youth dressed in brocade robes with a long sword at his waist. He had an extraordinary aura. The other was a man in black robes with a long spear on his back. He was like a heavy iron tower. Bei clan, Bei Dangui. Wang clan, Wang Cheng. The two of them were among the 7 geniuses of the Tianhe province and were ranked in front of Chu Shiqing. Chu Shiqing mainly focused on forging weapons and was not good at fighting. Hence, she was ranked last. Are those the geniuses of the Tianhe province? They are still passable. Murong Ming glanced at them indifferently, as if he was rather disdainful. Miss Chu, I'm sure you have already decided on your candidate. Let's begin. An elder from the Bei clan stepped forward and spoke. He was the leader of the Bei clan this time, and was also a divine soul realm expert. The dispute over the crystal jade lode has been going on for a long time. There should be a conclusion. On the other side, the elder from the Wang clan also spoke. Then let me take the first battle. A youth walked out from the Wang clan. It was not Wang Cheng, but Wang Zhan, who had once fought for the dragon blood transformation fruit. On Chu Shiqing's side, Princess Yuanyang strode forward with her beautiful legs. She held the Crimson Phoenix sword tightly in her jade hand and said, Wang Zhan, you've also broken through to the Qi refining realm. Let's compete. As the crisp words fell, Princess Yuanyang's delicate body also exploded with a strong aura. Her vital energy surged, and she was also in the Qi cultivation realm. Without any superfluous words, Wang Zhan and Princess Yuanyang fought fiercely. On the other hand, Chu Shiqing looked very relaxed. She knew the strength of Princess Yuanyang and Murong Ming. If they won these 2 battles, even if Yi Guchen did not come, the Heavenly Forging Pavilion would still be able to obtain the crystal jade lode. As expected, when the battle reached its climax, Wang Zhan used a secret technique that temporarily raised his strength to the 2nd cycle of the Qi cultivation realm. However, Princess Yuanyang also used a secret technique and a sword move that was close to the spirit level to defeat Wang Zhan. After the battle, Princess Yuanyang was slightly out of breath. Her snow-white face was a little red, but there was still some arrogance in her red phoenix eyes. Wang Zhan's face was a little ugly. The elders of the Bei and Wang clans also snorted heavily. However, the North Angelica and Wang Cheng's faces did not change much. The second battle will be up to young Master Murong. Seeing that Princess Yuanyang had won the first battle, Chu Shiqing also smiled and turned to Murong Ming. Miss Chu, you can rest assured. Murong Ming smiled and nodded. He was quite calm. He glanced at Princess Yuanyang from the corner of his eyes. He wanted to win this battle cleanly. Make your move. Otherwise, you won't even have the slightest chance. Murong Ming put his hands behind his back and said arrogantly. On the other side, Wang Cheng slightly raised his eyebrows and snorted coldly. He held the long spear behind his back in his hand and poured his true qi into it. With a slight shake, a thunderous explosion burst out. It's just a small trick. Murong Ming did not care at all. The origin ring on his finger flashed, and a long sword of spirit level appeared in his hand. At the same time, true qi burst out of his body. He had reached the 3rd cycle of the qi cultivation realm. No wonder young Master Murong is so confident. Seeing Murong Ming's cultivation, Chu Shiqing clicked her tongue and said, the 3rd cycle of the qi cultivation realm could be ranked at the top among the geniuses of the Milky Way prefecture. Wang Cheng narrowed his eyes. His cultivation was at the 2nd cycle of the qi cultivation realm. He was weaker than Murong Ming, but his aura was not much weaker. Boom! The two of them started fighting. What made Chu Shiqing's expression change slightly was that although Murong Ming's cultivation and swordsmanship were superior to Wang Cheng's combat experience was too rich. Moreover, his moves were very vicious and tricky. Every time Wang Cheng attacked with his spear, it was like a poisonous dragon stabbing at the weak points of Murong Ming's moves. In terms of fighting experience, Morong Ming was clearly inferior to Wang Cheng. However, Morong Ming was still a core disciple of a super family. No matter if it was cultivation techniques or swordsmanship, they were all superior to Wang Cheng. Therefore, he did not show any signs of weakness. I hope he can win. This way, the crystal jade lode will belong to my heavenly forging pavilion. Chu Shiqing secretly clenched her jade-like hands and prayed. This is really boring. I'll defeat you in one move. Morong Ming pointed his sword to the sky and poured his true qi into it. He displayed a powerful swordsmanship. I'll let you experience my Morong family's spirit-level swordsmanship, the mysterious heavenly sword art. Morong Ming waved his sword and swept it across. His sword qi was unrestrained, like the might of the heavens. Wang Cheng instantly vomited blood, but he was still holding on. Humph, you're just holding on. Morong Ming sneered. He was looking down on Wang Cheng even more. However, at this moment, Wang Cheng suddenly activated a secret technique. His true qi cultivation instantly rose to the third cycle of the qi cultivation realm. He immediately seized the opportunity and displayed his full strength with his spear. Wolf Shadow Destruction. Vigorous true qi condensed at the tip of the spear, faintly forming the shadow of a black demonic wolf. It violently pierced towards Morong Ming. Not good. Morong Ming's expression changed. After completely suppressing Wang Cheng, he was too careless. At this moment Wang Cheng suddenly attacked. Even Morong Ming was unable to react in time. Puchi! Wang Cheng changed from piercing to sweeping. He did not dare to directly kill Morong Ming. Morong Ming was directly swept away by this attack. He vomited large mouthfuls of blood and fiercely crashed into the ground. He looked to be in a very sorry state. Damn it, you are courting death. Do you know who I am? I am the young master of the Morong family. Do you know who my brother is? My brother is the #1 genius of the Beichen mansion, Morong Ditian. Such a defeat caused Morong Ming to be endlessly furious, and he was like an angry bull. However, this kind of reaction caused the disdain in Princess Yuanyang's beautiful eyes to become even more intense. Chu Shiqing's expression was also very unsightly. Originally, with Morong Ming's cultivation and strength, he would definitely win. However, unexpectedly in terms of temperament he was so childish and shallow. It is precisely because you are Morong family's young master that I did not kill you. Otherwise, do you think you can still bark here? Wang Cheng coldly said. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and turned around to return to the North and King family's camp. You're courting death. Morong Ming revealed a malevolent expression. Losing face in front of Princess Yuanyang made him feel rather embarrassed. Alright, next is the last match. From the North family's camp, Bei Dangui slowly stepped out. He looked very relaxed. Young Miss Yiguchen's future next. Chu Nanshan had a difficult expression. Chu Shiqing inwardly sighed and said, Only I can go. Chu Shiqing stepped forward. Bei Dangui indifferently smiled and said, Young Miss Chu, actually, you know very well that you are definitely not my opponent. Even so, I will not give up directly. Chu Shiqing's beautiful face revealed a trace of stubbornness. This crystal jade mine not only had crystal jades, but also many ores. It was very important to the heavenly forging pavilion, so Chu Shiqing had to give it a try no matter what. Since you overestimate yourself, then I will. Bei Dangui took a step forward, and the aura of a second cycle qi refinement realm exploded. Excuse me. Under the pressure of this aura, even with Chu Shiqing's first cycle qi refinement realm cultivation, she felt a little stuffy in her chest. Just as the two were about to start fighting, the sound of footsteps suddenly rang out. This was very strange. It was clearly just light footsteps, but it was like a drum that resounded in the ears of everyone in the Horsehoof Valley. The footsteps were steady, calm, and neither fast nor slow. A black-robed figure slowly walked over. Everyone's gaze landed on the figure. Their expressions changed tremendously. It's him. It's actually him. How is this possible? What is he doing here? Chapter 27. The black-robed figure was none other than Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen had sharp eyebrows and starry eyes. His handsome face was calm as he swept his gaze around and finally landed on Chu Shiqing. Sorry I'm late. It's okay, it's good that you're here. Chu Shiqing finally heaved a sigh of relief. She did not know why, but she always had an inexplicable confidence in Yi Guqin. As if Yi Guqin would definitely win if he came. At the same time, Yi Guqin felt two extremely eye-catching gazes. A fiery gaze came from Princess Yuanyang. She had a very complicated expression on her face. She seemed happy and angry at the same time, with a trace of bone-deep hatred. The other gaze came from Bei Dangui. When Yi Guqin appeared, Bei Danggui's gaze was fixed on him. You actually didn't die, and you even killed my younger brother, Bei Ling. Bei Dangui no longer had the calm expression from before. His face was full of hatred. That's right, so you have to be careful. Yi Guqin's tone was like ice. This was an instinctive hatred. After all, it was Bei Dangui who had plotted against Yi Guqin and caused his death. Brat, you are indeed very bold. Bei Qiu's face was gloomy. Yi Guqin's aunt Xian Su had casually killed Bei Ming, the Bei family's elder, and the Bei family did not even have the slightest reaction. This caused the Bei family's reputation in the entire Tianhe province to plummet. This caused everyone in the Bei family to hate Yi Guqin to the bone. This Yi Guqin is a helper that I invited. If your Bei family dares to touch him, my heavenly forging pavilion will definitely not sit by and watch, Chu Shiqing said in a deep voice. Inviting Yi Guqin to fight is simply a joke. Bei Dangui laughed coldly with some contempt. Not only Bei Dangui, the Bei family, the Wang family, and even some people from the Heavenly Forging Pavilion were puzzled as to why Chu Shiqing would invite Yi Guqin to take action. If it was Yi Guqin, who was once the head of the Milky Way Prefecture's 7 prides, then there would be nothing to say. However, Yi Guqin was now almost a cripple. Even though they had heard that he had recultivated and received Xia Yubing's sword, in the eyes of the crowd, he was no longer at his former peak. Is he Yi Guqin? He doesn't look that powerful. When Murong Ming saw that Princess Yuanyang's eyes were fixed on Yi Guqin, he instinctively felt disgusted with Yi Guqin. Whether it's a joke or not, we'll know after we fight. Yi Guqin didn't say anything more and summoned his Tribulation Dust sword, releasing the aura of an Essence Origin 5th stage cultivator. What? Are you kidding me? Refined Origin stage? What kind of courage does Yi Guqin have? He's only at the Essence Origin 5th stage, yet he dares to fight a Qi Refinement Realm genius. When Yi Guqin's aura was released, not to mention the 2 families of the Northern King, even some of the people from the Heavenly Forging Pavilion were dumbfounded. 5th stage Essence Origin stage? What a joke! Murong Ming seemed to have found a place to vent his anger, and he mercilessly mocked her with a harsh tone. 5th stage Essence Origin stage. Princess Yuanyang's eyes were filled with deep meaning. Although she couldn't help but feel a trace of disappointment, she still wanted to know if Yi Guqin was really that person. Miss this? Chu Nanchuan's expression didn't look too good. Chu Shiqing shook her head and sighed. Right now, we can only believe in Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin didn't care about the disdainful, cold, or mocking gazes of the people around him. His heart was like a boulder, and he was no longer moved by external things. Yi Guqin, with your current cultivation, you're just courting death if you fight me. You killed my younger brother. Even if your mysterious aunt is protecting you, I won't let you go. Bei Donggui's eyes were filled with hatred. You're allowed to plot against me, but I'm not allowed to kill your younger brother. What kind of logic is that? Yi Guqin sneered. What are you talking about? Don't slander me. Bei Donggui's eyes flashed, and he unsheathed his 2 swords. Unlike ordinary sword cultivators, Bei Dangui used 2 swords. One of the swords was completely red and emitted flames, while the other was completely silver and flashed with lightning. These were Bei Donggui's top-grade spirit swords, the Thunder and Fire swords. Kill. Without any hesitation, Bei Dangui and Yi Guqin attacked at the same time. The hatred between the 2 was irreconcilable, and they could only fight. Boom! Bei Donggui's true qi surged, and the aura of a second transformation Qi Refinement Realm gushed out. He waved the fire sword in his hand, and the sword Qi accompanied by flames slashed toward Yi Guqin. If it were an ordinary expert of the Essence Realm, they wouldn't be able to resist this move. However, Yi Guqin was different. He had too many tricks and trump cards. Boom! Although Yi Guchen was only at the 5th stage of the essence realm, he had ignited his qi and blood. His body was covered with a layer of faint blood-red flames, and his aura was rising steadily, although he still couldn't compare to Bei Dangui, who had reached the 2nd transformation qi refinement realm. The gap between them had narrowed. A secret technique that squeezes out qi and blood? Not only can it not last long, but it will also damage the foundation of the body. Seeing Yi Guchen's transformation, Bei Dangui sneered in his heart. Bei Dangui wasn't the only one who thought so. Most of the spectators had the same thought. However, they didn't know that not only did Yi Guchen cultivate the 9 tribulations Heart Sutra, he had also passed 2 blood tribulations of the physical body. He had also cultivated the body metamorphosis scripture, and his qi and blood were incomparably strong. These losses couldn't hurt his foundation at all, and he could recover quickly. Yi Guchen held the calamity dust sword in his hand, and the flames of qi and blood lingered on the blade, colliding with Bei Dangui's fire sword. When the two collided, flames shot out in all directions. A powerful rebounding force came from the calamity dust sword, accompanied by true qi, and violently shook Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen took 4 or 5 steps back before he could disperse the rebounding force. On the other hand, Bei Dangui didn't even take a step back. However, Yi Guchen's performance didn't cause the people around to laugh at him. Instead, they were a little surprised. Yi Guchen really has the power to fight? Chu Nanchun was surprised. Not only him, but all the spectators were the same, because in their impression, the qi refining realm and the qi refining realm were not at the same level at all. One used the qi refining realm, while the other used true qi. They were originally unequal. However, Yi Guchen could contend with Bei Dangui, with his cultivation, at the 5th level of the qi refining realm. In the eyes of the spectators, this was already extremely incredible. I knew it. The former young sword master is definitely not so simple. Chu Shiqing's eyes shone with a strange light. As for Princess Yuanyang, her beautiful red phoenix eyes lit up as she stared fixedly at Yi Guchen. This caused Morong Ming, who was standing to one side, to feel extremely displeased. Even his gaze towards Yi Guchen contained a trace of jealousy and hatred. Clang! 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 In the field, the two people's swords clashed. Both Bei Dangui and Yi Guchen didn't hold back at all, and both of their attacks were deadly. Well, I don't have the patience to waste time with you here. Bei Dangui used his thunder and fire swords, and performed the diffraction sword technique. The dazzling sword shadows transformed into dozens of light shadows. Bei Dangui's mastery of the diffraction sword technique had long surpassed Bei Ling's. However, such a confusing sword technique was completely useless against Yi Guchen. His superb mastery of the way of the sword allowed him to distinguish the real and fake sword shadows with a single glance. Swoosh! Yi Guchen attacked with his sword. It was the meteor piercing the moon. It's just the lousy piercing the moon sword technique. Seeing Yi Guchen perform the piercing the moon sword technique, whether it was the Bei family, Morong Ming, or the others, they all sneered. Even ordinary martial artists wouldn't be willing to practice such a lousy sword technique. Meteor piercing the moon. Yi Guchen performed the piercing the moon sword technique's ultimate move. The tip of his sword moved forward, passing through the mini sword shadows, and directly touching the real sword shadow. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing could be heard. Bei Dangui was astonished. He didn't expect Yi Guchen to see through the sword shadows so easily. So what? Have a taste of this move. Bei Dangui performed the diffraction sword technique again. This time, he directly performed the ultimate move of the diffraction sword technique, diffraction shadow. In an instant, dozens of sword shadows were as swift as flowing light. They were like shadows, attacking Yi Guchen at the same time. The most terrifying thing was that each sword shadow was filled with vigorous vital energy and had a strong killing power. The ultimate move of the diffraction sword technique. Bei Dangui is indeed a genius. It's not easy to cultivate the Xiantian sword technique to a small success, the spectators exclaimed. Everyone from the Bei family, including the elders of the North Chiu family, smiled knowingly. I wonder if Yi Guchen can withstand it? Chu Shiqing looked worried. However, In the face of Bei Donggui's ultimate move, Yi Guchen's expression didn't change. The 13 vessel meridians on the Jiechen sword lit up, causing the power of the sword qi to increase dramatically. Yi Guchen swung his sword again. It was just one sword, but the bright sword light almost blinded the eyes of the surrounding spectators. The sword light was too beautiful and bright. It was like a cold moon falling from the night sky, the ultimate move of the piercing moon swordsmanship, moonfall. It's actually the ultimate move. When Yi Guchen attacked, the surrounding people were stunned and couldn't help but exclaim. Although the piercing moon swordsmanship was not mainstream, it was very difficult to cultivate any swordsmanship to a large success. Without absolute comprehension and perseverance, it was very difficult to cultivate it. It's really him. After seeing Yi Guchen use moonfall, Princess Yuanyang's beautiful eyes were shocked. Although she had heard that Yi Guchen was the mysterious masked man who killed Bei Ling that day, she wasn't too sure. However, when moonfall was used, Princess Yuanyang was almost certain that Yi Guchen was the masked man that day. This also made her feel a little complicated. After all, she wanted to take Yi Guchen as a swordsman, but the combat power that Yi Guchen showed that day was not weaker than her, and was even a little stronger. However, Princess Yuanyang really didn't know that Yi Guchen's current strength was enough to crush her. Yi Guchen held the Calamity Dust sword in his hand. The beautiful and gorgeous sword light broke through the mini-sword shadows and stabbed towards Bei Dongui. Bei Donggui's expression was a little impatient. The sword momentum changed again. The originally swift and ethereal sword shadows quickly turned into a violent sword qi. Stormy swordsmanship. Boom! The swords collided, and the violent sword qi spread out like a waterfall. After activating the power of qi and blood, and possessing the power of dragon and elephant, although the gap between Yi Guchen and Bei Dongui was infinitely closed, there was still a gap between their realms. After this attack, Yi Guchen retreated dozens of steps. The qi and blood in his body were shaken, and he was seriously injured. However, this kind of injury was not a big problem for Yi Guchen's current physique. On the other hand, Bei Dongui also retreated a few steps, but he was obviously better than Yi Guchen. So what if you recultivate? You can't keep up with me anymore. Next move, I'll finish you. Chapter 28. Bei Dongui attacked again, and the weapon veins on his lightning fire swords lit up, shooting out lightning and flames at the same time. He swept out with both swords, and the sword light surged out. The surrounding ground couldn't withstand the pressure, and cracks appeared. Minor accomplishment. It's definitely the minor accomplishment realm. The Raging Wave sword technique is considered top-notch, even among the Xiantian sword techniques. Bei Dongui has actually cultivated it to the minor accomplishment realm. Seeing Bei Dongui make a move, the surrounding spectators cried out in surprise. Chu Shiqing frowned, because the Raging Wave sword technique that Bei Dongui used did indeed give people a lot of pressure. Yi Guchen, I'll defeat you with this Raging Wave sword technique. Bei Dongui waved both swords at the same time, and sword energy swept out like a huge wave. Layers of sword energy poured down on Yi Guchen like surging waves. It was the Raging Wave sword technique's minor accomplishment skill. Raging Wave sword technique. Bei Donggui's cultivation was at the second transformation qi refinement realm, so the Raging Wave sword technique was extremely powerful. Seeing this, Yi Guchen lit up the weapon veins on his Tribulation Dust sword again, and then he drew a circle with his sword. It was an extremely simple circle that seemed to be able to contain everything. Tai Chi sword technique. This move, when Yi Guchen used Tai Chi sword technique, Wang Zhan and Princess Yuanyang's eyes narrowed. They had seen Yi Guchen use this sword technique before. At that time, Yi Guchen's cultivation was far weaker than now, and he relied on Tai Chi sword technique to block Bei Ling's killing move. Boom! The incomparably violent sword qi poured down on Yi Guchen's sword. In an instant, the huge force that came through caused Yi Guchen's arms to make cracking sounds. His arms actually split open and blood seams appeared on them. Although Yi Guchen's techniques weren't weak, the gap between their realms was still a big problem. Yi Guchen, pay for my brother's life. Bei Donggui's eyes were bloodshot. He didn't care about the ant behind Yi Guchen, He just wanted Yi Guchen to die. Boom! The powerful sword energy suddenly exploded, like raging waves hitting the shore. Yi Guchen's Tai Chi sword technique couldn't withstand the pressure and collapsed. Even so, most of the sword energy of the raging wave sword technique was neutralized, and only a small amount of sword energy bombarded Yi Guchen's body. Die! Bei Dangui sneered. He was sure that although the power of the violent sword wave had been reduced by more than half, it was still more than enough to kill a martial artist in the essential origin realm. At the same time, the rest of the spectators shook their heads, knowing that this battle had already been decided. As expected, it still doesn't work? Chu Shiqing sighed. Yi Guchen. On the other side, Princess Yuanyang clenched her hand tightly. She's its Dangui Gui's Chu. He's Chu. It's good enough that you can hold on for so long. Morong Ming crossed his arms, a hint of disdain in his mouth. However, they didn't notice that when the sword energy bombarded Yi Guchen's body, a golden light suddenly surged on the surface of Yi Guchen's skin. Boom! Yi Guchen's body was violently blasted away. Brother, I finally avenged you. Bei Dangui held his two swords, feeling as if a stone had been lifted from his heart. Well, it's obvious who's the winner and loser now. This crystal jade mine will be controlled by the North family and the North family. Bei Qiu stepped forward and said. Chu Shiqing gritted her teeth. She was very unwilling. Oh, is that so? Just when everyone thought that the dust had settled, a somewhat weak but firm voice suddenly sounded. This is. Everyone's gaze uniformly fell in the direction of the voice. Yi Guchen slowly stood up, the clothes on his chest torn, revealing some sword wounds on his chest. Although the wounds looked bloody, they didn't hurt his bones. Bei Dangui, your sword is not bad, but it's not enough. Yi Guchen's tone was calm from beginning to end. How is that possible? Bei Dangui stared at Yi Guchen, his teeth almost breaking. The sword that was supposed to kill Yi Guchen did not kill him. The onlookers were even more shocked. Although Yi Guchen's Taiji swordsmanship had neutralized most of the power of that sword, it was definitely not something that a warrior in the essence realm could block. What a strong physical strength. Chu Nanchun stared at Yi Guchen and sighed. It seems that Yi Guchen will really give me a surprise. Chu Shiqing's beautiful face revealed a faint smile, as bright as the sun on a clear day. Impossible. How can you survive? Bei Dangui seemed to be in disbelief. Since you've already made your move, then it's my turn. Yi Guchen frowned and instantly drew his sword. After passing the second minor tribulation of the blood tribulation of the physical body, coupled with the Vajradharma body cultivated by the I Ching scripture, the wound on his chest was not a big problem for Yi Guchen. So Yi Guchen could once again attack with all his strength. A sword light flashed past like a flash of lightning, and a muffled thunder suddenly exploded in the air. The minor technique of the split lightning sword, Thunder Crash. Although it was a swordsmanship from his previous life, its power was definitely not inferior to a Xiantian swordsmanship. Bei Dangui hurriedly used the thunder and fire swords to block, but he was blasted back a few steps, and his palm was numb from the shock. Using the frenzy sword wave consumed a lot of Bei Dangui's genuine qi by more than half. However, Yi Guchen's qi and blood were incomparably vigorous, and the essence qi he transformed was naturally also extremely vigorous, so his endurance was far greater than Bei Dangui's. No, if this goes on, it will not be good. Bei Dangui made a prompt decision and attacked again. With this attack, the sword move changed again. As the two swords were waved, it seemed to resonate with the void, and a wave of vibration suddenly burst out. This is the Bei family's Xiantian swordsmanship vacuum sword wave. Rumor has it that it is the most difficult Xiantian swordsmanship to cultivate. Bei Dangui has actually cultivated the vacuum sword wave to a higher level. However, rumor has it that the vacuum sword wave is a remnant of a spiritual level swordsmanship, and Bei Dangui has actually cultivated it. It seems that Yi Guchen is in trouble. When the surrounding spectators saw Bei Dangui use the vacuum sword wave, they all exclaimed in surprise. This farce should be over. Since he has used this move, Yi Guchen has no way out. Bei Qiu, the elder of the Bei family, snorted coldly. However, at this moment, Yi Guchen's expression was slightly strange. Not only had he also cultivated the vacuum sword wave, but he had also cultivated the vacuum sword wave to a small success level. He could see that the vacuum sword wave that Bei Dangui used now had a total of 7 layers, which was already considered a very good move. However, it was a pity that he had encountered Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen injected his profound qi into the tribulation dust, and in an instant, all 26 weapons were lit up. A vigorous energy was brewing in the sword body, and then, vacuum sword wave overlapping waves. Boom, 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 one after another. Transparent sword wave swept out, and the momentum far exceeded that of Bei Dangui. After the 20 layers of sword wave spread out, they actually stacked together in a short breath. The terrifying shockwave tore apart Bei Dangui's 7 sword ripples in an instant, and then it crashed towards Bei Dangui with a loud rumble. Not good. The North Chiu Kingdom immediately attacked, and the terrifying power of the godly soul realm exploded. The attack directly dispersed the 20 layers of sword wave, and the North Chiu Kingdom even took a small step back. A godly soul realm expert was forced to take a small step back by a profound Qi realm warrior. Silence. The entire Horseshoe Valley was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. One could even hear the sound of someone swallowing their saliva. Really? Vacuum sword wave, and it's a small success level vacuum sword wave. A martial cultivator's throat was dry as he spoke with difficulty. That is known as the most difficult Xiantian sword technique to cultivate, and it's a remnant of a spiritual level sword technique. How did Yi Guchen get it, and even cultivate it to a small success level? A Bei family expert said somewhat helplessly. Then there was a complete uproar. Vacuum sword wave, you got it from my younger brother, right? But how is it possible? How long has it been? And you can cultivate the vacuum sword wave to a small success level. Bei Dangui gritted his teeth so hard that his lips were bleeding. He was unwilling to accept it. He did not believe that Yi Guchen had not only defeated him, but also used the Bei family's vacuum sword wave to defeat him. With his talent, he had been immersed in the vacuum sword wave for so long, but he could only display 7 layers of sword wave. But what about Yi Guchen? That was a full 20 layers of sword wave, and it was a small trick that was stacked together. Even the North Chiu Kingdom, who was at the godly soul realm, was forced to take a small step back. Monster. A complete swordsmanship monster. At this moment, everyone looked at Yi Guchen differently. It could be said that Yi Guchen's performance this time had really shocked everyone. Miss, you really have good taste. Little friend Ye's talent in swordsmanship is indeed monstrous. Chu Nanchun could not help but sigh. Actually, I also did not expect Yi Guchen to be so strong. Chu Shiqing did not expect Yi Guchen's performance to be far beyond her expectations. He is back again. Princess Yuanyang's beautiful eyes were a little dazed. It was as if she saw the heroic young man, who had won the title of Master Swordsman. This time, the battle had also completely come to an end. In the battle between Bei Dangui and Yi Guchen, it was the North Chiu Kingdom who stepped in and blocked Yi Guchen's stacked waves. The winner and loser had naturally been decided. This battle can be decided now, right? Chu Shiqing walked over with light steps, and said with a faint smile. The elders of the North Wang and North Wang families looked a little ugly. As for Bei Dangui, he was still in a daze, as if he had not recovered from the blow. When the North Chiu Kingdom saw this, his eyes were as gloomy as water. He looked at Yi Guchen and said coldly, "Very well, Yi Guchen, this matter will not end like this." Yi Guchen's expression was indifferent and casual. Even if he had defeated Bei Dangui, he did not have a trace of excitement. I, Yi Guchen, will accompany you with any means. Then, the people of the North Wang and North Wang families left dejectedly. The remaining people of the Heavenly Forging Pavilion cheered. Sitting on the entire crystal jade mine, there were many ores in the mine that were suitable for casting. For the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, it was definitely a great opportunity, and could even make the Heavenly Forging Pavilion more prosperous. Yi Guchen. A hoarse female voice sounded from behind Yi Guchen. He turned around and saw Princess Yuanyang, who had a complicated look in her eyes. You are injured. This is a spiritual recovery pill. It can heal some injuries. Princess Yuanyang bit her red lips and took out an elixir. Although it was not an extremely precious healing pill, it was not a common item that could be seen everywhere. This scene was seen by Morong Ming, who was at the side and burned with jealousy. Chapter 29. Thank you for your kindness, princess, but there's no need for that. Yi Guchen politely declined. Firstly, he didn't want to have anything to do with Princess Yuanyang. Secondly, with his strong recovery ability, he didn't need the spiritual recovery pill. I even said that I wanted to take you in as a sword attendant. Now that I look at it, I'm really laughable. Princess Yuanyang laughed self-deprecatingly. She was born in a noble family and thought highly of herself. She had developed an arrogant and willful personality. She could get whatever she wanted. However, she was rejected by Yi Guchen again and again. However, it was also because of this that Yi Guchen's figure was deeply engraved in her heart. Seeing Princess Yuanyang like this, Yi Guchen sighed and didn't say anything. Yi Guchen, it's all thanks to you this time. Chu Shiqing walked over in a very good mood. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Yi Guchen cupped his hands. Thank you, young Master Morong. Chu Shiqing turned to the side. Although her tone was still polite, it was also slightly casual. Morong Ming was not an idiot. After hearing Chu Shiqing's words, his expression became a bit ugly. He looked at Yi Guchen. His gaze was filled with hostility. Feeling the threatening gaze, Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows. He knew about the Morong family. It was a super family in the Beicheng prefecture. There were 5 great families in the Milky Way prefecture, and none of them could compare to the Morong family. In the Beicheng prefecture, there were only 2 powerful families, the Morong family and the Situ family. Feeling Morong Ming's hostility, Yi Guchen ignored it. This matter is over. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Yi Guchen cupped his hands. Wait, Yi Guchen. Aren't you curious about the crystal jade vein? Chu Shiqing asked. Is there anything special about the crystal jade vein? Yi Guchen asked. Chu Shiqing muttered to herself and said, Princess and young Master Morong must be tired from the battle just now. Master Chu, bring them back to the Heavenly Forging Pavilion first. Yes. Chu Nanchun understood tacitly. Princess Yuanyang bit her lip, glanced at Yi Guchen, then turned and left. Morong Ming's expression was somewhat gloomy. He snorted coldly, flicked his sleeves and left. Why send them away? Yi Guchen asked. Princess Yuanyang and Morong Ming both have powers behind them. Although they helped my Heavenly Forging Pavilion this time, it is inevitable that they would not have any thoughts about the things in the crystal jade lode. However, you are different. You are alone and have helped us greatly this time. Naturally, we will give you some good things. Chu Shiqing mischievously winked at Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen was taken aback. He didn't expect that Chu Shiqing, who had always been scheming, would actually have such a young side to her. Come with me. Chu Shiqing brought Yi Guchen and a few people from the Heavenly Forging Pavilion into the crystal jade lode of the Horse Hoof Valley. Upon entering the lode, Yi Guchen was blinded by the densely packed crystal jade ores around him. The number of ores was truly astonishing. This time, it's all thanks to you that my Heavenly Forging Pavilion was able to take down this lode. That Calamity Earth sword was bought by you with your own crystal jade, so it can't be considered a gift. I'll give you another 10,000 crystal jades. Chu Shiqing said. 10,000 crystal jades. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows. This was not a small sum. However, Yi Guchen also knew that the value of this crystal jade lode was not something that could be measured with 10,000 crystal jades. In addition, let me show you something else. Chu Shiqing said mysteriously, then brought Yi Guchen to the depths of the crystal jade lode. The deeper they went into the lode, the more Yi Guchen discovered that other than the crystal jade ores, there were also many ores used to refine spirit artifacts. Just the value of these ores was not inferior to the crystal jade ores. Yi Guchen finally understood why Chu Shiqing was so determined to obtain this lode. With so many ores used for refining, the strength of the Heavenly Forging Pavilion would definitely rise to another level, and her father's authority in the Heavenly Forging Pavilion would also increase. Not long after, Chu Shiqing and Yi Guchen arrived at the deepest part of the crystal jade lode. Yi Guchen looked around and discovered that there were some metal ores scattered on the walls. On the surface of these metal ores, there were many ring-shaped patterns. Yi Guchen was not proficient in artifact forging, so he was not very clear about these ores. Yi Guchen, this ore is called the heavenly silk steel. Rumor has it that it is produced by a strange beast called the heavenly treasure silkworm, after it swallows metal. Chu Shiqing's tone carried a trace of excitement. Heavenly silk steel. Yi Guchen now understood why Chu Shiqing was so excited. The heavenly silk steel was an extremely rare ore, and its value was astonishing. The heavenly silk steel is divided into two types. One is the silver ring pattern, and the other is the golden ring pattern. The value of the silver ring heavenly silk steel is extremely shocking. If it's the golden ring, it's comparable to the meteorite iron. That's a precious material for forging spirit inscription divine weapons. Chu Shiqing said. It's comparable to the meteorite iron. Yi Guchen couldn't help but nod his head. It seemed that whether it was the meteorite iron or the golden ring heavenly silk steel, they were both precious materials for forging spirit inscription divine weapons. Its value far exceeded the materials used to forge spirit artifacts. Could it be that theirs? Yi Guchen's mind stirred. Sure enough, in the deepest part of the mine, there were a few pieces of heavenly silk steel. On their surface, there were golden ring-shaped patterns. Golden ring heavenly silk steel. Although it wasn't a lot, a small piece was shockingly valuable. It had to be known that Yi Guchen's calamity dust sword only had the meteorite iron mixed in. As for the golden ring heavenly silk steel in front of him, although it wasn't much, there were still 4 pieces. Yi Guchen, this golden ring heavenly silk steel contains the silk of the heavenly treasure silkworm. It's soft and tough. If you add a little to any sword you forge, it will make the sword extremely soft and tough. If you add an entire piece of heavenly silk steel, you can even forge a soft sword, Chu Shiqing said. Soft sword? Yi Guchen's mind stirred. He had once used a crepe myrtle soft sword in his previous life, and it was because of that crepe myrtle soft sword that Yi Guchen had the chance to comprehend the hard and soft sword Dao. Among the 4 great sword Daos that Yi Guchen had comprehended in his previous life, the hard and soft sword Dao was the first to be comprehended, and also the easiest to comprehend. In his previous life, Dugu Wubai used the crepe myrtle soft sword, and used the hard and soft sword Dao. He could even change the direction of the sword Qi, changing between hard and soft. It was extremely magical. In this life, Yi Guchen was already prepared to comprehend the sword intent. He didn't have the chance to comprehend the Shura sword intent yet, but he could start with the hard and soft sword intent. All he lacked was a soft sword, but with the calamity dust sword, Yi Guchen didn't care about ordinary spiritual weapons. Even if it was a supreme grade spiritual weapon, he needed a spiritual inscription divine weapon soft sword. You have contributed greatly to us being able to obtain the crystal jade mine this time. This piece of golden ring heavenly silkworm silk steel is my gift to you. Chu Shiqing was very generous, and directly gave Yi Guchen a piece of golden ring heavenly silkworm silk steel. One had to know that this was a material used to forge spiritual inscription divine weapons. It was comparable to the meteorite iron. Yi Guchen hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Alright, this matter has been smoothly concluded. Yi Guchen, your matter will probably spread through the entire Milky Way prefecture. It seems like it won't be long before you become the leader of the prodigies of heaven again. Chu Shiqing was currently in a very good mood, and said with a smile. Yi Guchen shook his head. How could things be so simple? Chu Shiqing slightly nodded and said, Indeed. Yi Guchen, after you recultivate it, your cultivation is extraordinary. You can even defeat Bei Dangui. However, that Xia Yubing is still a huge mountain pressing down on your head. Xia Yubing. Yi Guchen frowned. There would be a battle between him and Xia Yubing. Moreover, this battle wouldn't be far away. The 10 prefectures elite meeting would be the battlefield for the 2 of them. There is still half a year before the 10 prefectures elite meeting. In this half a year, I must break through to the Qi refinement realm and grasp a type of sword intent. Only then will I have the qualifications to contend against Xia Yubing. Yi Guchen thought inwardly. With the inheritance of the North River Sword King, Xia Yubing's comprehension of sword intent would definitely not be slow. Only by comprehending sword intent would Yi Guchen have the qualifications to contend against Xia Yubing. Currently, Yi Guchen only had the opportunity to comprehend two types of sword intent. One was the Azura sword intent from the Blood Listening Tower's 18 Blood Prison. The other was the hard and soft sword intent that he had comprehended in his previous life. To be able to comprehend one type of sword intent, one could already be considered a prodigy of the sword Tao. However, Yi Guchen planned to comprehend two types of sword intent at the same time, if he had the chance. If I want to comprehend the Azura sword will, I must have the opportunity to enter the 18 Blood Prison. If I want to comprehend the hard and soft sword will, I only need a soft sword. Yi Guchen pondered and quickly made up his mind. He wanted to obtain a divine spiritual inscription soft sword. Although Chu Shiqing promised to give Yi Guchen 10,000 crystal jades, soft swords were different from ordinary sharp swords. A divine spiritual inscription soft sword was even rarer. It could be said that even if one had crystal jades, one might not necessarily be able to buy one. Moreover, a divine spiritual inscription soft sword was far more valuable than a sharp sword of the same level. I already have the main materials to forge a soft sword. All that's missing is a person to forge it. Yi Guchen frowned slightly. However, even Chu Shiqing's father, the great pavilion master of the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, was only a peak 3-star blacksmith. Forging a top-grade spirit weapon was not a problem, but he was not confident in forging a divine spiritual inscription soft sword. Moreover, a soft sword was even harder to forge. Yi Guchen thought that the great pavilion master's success rate in forging a soft sword would be pitifully low. Without any clues for the time being, Yi Guchen could only suppress the thoughts in his heart. In just a few days, the news of Yi Guchen defeating Bei Dangui spread throughout the entire Milky Way province like a kite with a broken string. Everyone was amazed that after Yi Guchen had fallen, he had actually risen again. At the same time, many people cast playful gazes towards the Xia clan. They knew that the prodigy of the Xia clan and Yi Guchen, who had returned powerfully, would definitely have a pinnacle battle. And this pinnacle battle would completely explode in the 10 prefectures elite gathering soon. Only on such a stage where the prodigies gathered would there be an extreme collision. Chapter 30. While news of the Milky Way province was spreading, in the Qi nurturing garden in the core area of the Xia family, an elegantly decorated pavilion was located in the center. The entire Qi nurturing garden was filled with the scent of spring and dense spiritual energy. All kinds of spiritual herbs and plants were flourishing. Only the surroundings of the pavilion were as cold as the earth and the sky. Even the grass and leaves were covered in a thin layer of ice. Inside the pavilion, a slender figure in a blue robe sat cross-legged on the ground. Her smooth ice-blue hair cascaded down her skinny back like a waterfall to the ground. Around her, dense icy air filled the air and covered the ground in a layer of silver white. After an unknown period of time, the girl's delicate body suddenly trembled, and she abruptly opened her icy blue eyes. Boom! A vigorous wave of true energy spread out in all directions. The fluctuation far surpassed that of Bei Dangui. Fifth cycle of Qi refinement realm. The supreme spiritual herbs and pills left behind by Chu Donglu are indeed helpful for ice true energy. My dark ice heart technique has also reached a higher level. Xia Yubing muttered in a low voice. If this news were to spread, it would definitely cause quite a commotion. The fifth cycle of Qi refinement realm had already left the geniuses of the Milky Way province far behind. But even so, the most important thing for me is still the ice sword intent. If I can completely comprehend this sword intent, I will be able to obtain first place in the 10 prefectures elite gathering. At that time, I will be able to choose from the 3 great sects and the 4 great academies. Although Xia Yubing was a girl, she was very ambitious. Otherwise, she wouldn't have used such methods to frame Yi Guchen. But I heard that Yi Guchen has recovered his sword talent and defeated Bei Dangui. He is still a hidden danger. If there is a chance, I will end it in the 10 prefectures elite gathering. Xia Yubing muttered to herself in a casual tone, as if she was talking about a trivial matter. However, the surrounding temperature dropped by quite a bit. After helping Chu Shiqing obtain the crystal jade mine, Yi Guchen returned to the blood-listening tower. He became the assassin's sword demon with a blood-red mask. During his free time, Yi Guchen would go to the Heavenly Forging Pavilion to discuss sword forging techniques with Chu Shiqing. Thus, the so-called forging and smithing refers to the combination of materials and the use of junshi to open up the vessel meridians. Inside the pavilion, Chu Shiqing and Yi Guchen were talking. Talking with Miss Chu has indeed benefited me greatly. Yi Guchen smiled faintly. He really wanted to forge a sword that belonged to him. If there's a chance, I can bring you to the forging room of my Heavenly Forging Pavilion. It might be better to personally experience the forging, Chu Shiqing said with a smile. At this moment, there was a sudden clamor from below the pavilion. Chu Shiqing and Yi Guchen both stood up and went downstairs. At the entrance of the Heavenly Forging Pavilion, an old man in ragged clothes was at the entrance, surrounded by a few female attendants. Him again? Chu Shiqing raised her eyebrows slightly. Yi Guchen looked over. It was the old drunkard from before. Yi Guchen had given him 10 crystal jades to buy wine. This old man wants wine, only wine. The old drunkard, who reeked of alcohol, rolled on the ground. What a rotten old man. How dare you behave so atrociously in my Heavenly Forging Pavilion? Guards, chase him away. A female attendant scolded with her eyebrows raised. Wait! A calm voice sounded. Yi, young Master Yi? When the female attendant saw Yi Guchen, she hurriedly retreated to the side. If you want to drink, let's go. Yi Guchen flung his sleeves. The old drunkard was startled. He stared at Yi Guchen's back. Something seemed to flash in his muddy old eyes. Then he stood up, patted the dust off his body, and followed. In the tavern, Yi Guchen and the old drunkard sat opposite each other. In front of them was a table full of good wine. The old drunkard wolfed down his food, while Yi Guchen only held his wine bowl and sipped. After a long while, almost all the wine on the table had been finished by the old drunkard. Yi Guchen had only finished the wine in his bowl. Brat, you don't like to drink? The old drunkard glanced sideways at Yi Guchen. Wine messes with the mind. Drinking a little is good for the mood. Drinking a lot is bad for the body. Yi Guchen said indifferently. If I finish drinking, this old man is leaving. The old drunkard wiped his mouth with his dirty sleeve and was about to leave. Sigh. Yi Guchen suddenly sighed. Brat, what are you sighing for? The old drunkard stared at Yi Guchen. We are all people who have fallen to the same fate. Why should we have known each other before? Yi Guchen seemed to be implying something. Brat, what did you say? A dark light flashed in the old drunkard's eyes. I was once the head of the 7 great geniuses of the Heavenly River province. I was framed. The innate sword embryo in my body was stolen, and my sword vein was crippled. I suffered countless slander, curses, and humiliation. May I ask, Senior, am I considered miserable? Yi Guchen casually said. The word senior caused the old drunkard's gaze to constrict. What do your words have to do with this old man? The old drunkard said in a low voice. Senior, aren't you also a person who has fallen to the same fate as this brat? Otherwise, why would you drown your sorrows in alcohol and numb yourself? Yi Guchen said. What nonsense are you spouting? This old man doesn't understand. The old drunkard flicked his sleeves and was about to leave. Senior, you're a blacksmith, right? The old drunkard suddenly stopped in his tracks. I noticed that there are many thick calluses on the web between your thumb and forefinger. It's a result of many years of blacksmithing. Although you reek of alcohol, it can't hide the smell of smoke. Lastly, and most importantly, you're also a sword fanatic. The old drunkard slowly turned around after Yi Guchen finished speaking. Brat, how can you be so sure that this old man is a sword fanatic? Intuition. Yi Guchen smiled mysteriously. However, as a sword demon who had been immersed in the way of the sword for more than 40 years and dominated the world, he was extremely sensitive to people who were also sword fanatics. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was intuition. The old drunkard took a deep look at Yi Guchen and suddenly said, "Brat, you have a damaged divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions, don't you?" "Yes, but I don't know what you mean by this." Yi Guchen nodded. "Humph, you treated me to so much wine. I'm not the kind of person who takes advantage of others. Give me the sword." The old drunkard stretched out a pair of dirty, withered hands. If it were an ordinary person, not to mention a priceless divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions, even an ordinary spiritual weapon would not be casually handed over to a person who he did not know the details of. However, Yi Guchen just smiled faintly. With a flash of his origin ring, the dust fell into the old drunkard's eyes. The old drunkard's withered hand, which was like a bird's claw, gently caressed the sword, as if he was caressing his wife, whom he had not seen for many years. Then he turned around and left without even saying goodbye to Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen smiled and did not chase after the old drunkard. He knew that the old drunkard was not an ordinary person, but from his crippled hands, the old drunkard must have experienced some unknown setbacks. However, Yi Guchen did not intend to find out the old drunkard's identity for now. After that, Yi Guchen returned to his days of cultivation. He lived in a small residence in the bamboo forest outside of Shang River City. On one hand, he increased his cultivation level. On the other hand, he honed his swordsmanship as the sword devil of the blood-listening tower. During this period of time, Yi Guchen's cultivation base rose from the 5th level of the Essence Yuan stage to the 7th level of the Essence Yuan stage. Although it was not as crazy as before, it was still a steady improvement. At the same time, he was surprised to see that the blood-listening tower's sword devil also made it onto the Heaven Pride list. Although he was only ranked in the 40s, everyone in the Tianhe prefecture and the surrounding prefectures knew that another Heaven Pride, wearing a blood-red mask, had appeared in the blood-listening tower. "I heard that the sword devil from the blood-listening tower is really terrifying. I don't think he has ever failed an assassination." "That's right." Including the sword devil, Nightingale, Yu Shicho and the red-haired ghost, the blood-listening tower has a total of 4 Heaven Prides on the Heaven Pride list. Among them, Yu Shicho is ranked 4th, the red-haired ghost is ranked 13th, Nightingale is ranked 37th, and the sword devil has only appeared recently and is ranked 42nd. Unfortunately, the 10 prefectures elite gathering is held to prepare the disciples of the 3 great sects and 4 great academies. They are all assassins of the blood-listening tower, and naturally cannot join the 7 great factions. Yi Guchen walked along the streets of Shanghai City as he listened to the gossip. He was a little surprised that the sword devil's reputation had spread so quickly in such a short period of time. Yi Guchen changed into his black clothes and blood mask, and entered one of the blood-listening tower stations to accept missions as usual. However, when Yi Guchen arrived at the underground space, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere was unusual. Many of the blood-listening tower assassins were also looking at the end of the underground space, where a jade slip was placed. A blood-red jade slip that was as dazzling as fresh blood. A blood-red jade slip. The most difficult and dangerous mission. Chapter 31. The missions in the blood-colored jade slips were all group missions, not something any assassin could complete alone. Even the gold-masked assassins could not complete the mission. At this moment, the blood-colored jade slips were picked up by a tall figure covered in a pitch-black cloak. The figure stood there, emitting a gloomy and cold aura. He held the blood-colored jade slips in one hand, and a ferocious sickle that was 3 feet taller than him in the other. He looked like the god of death. One of the 4 judges of Bloodthirst Tower, the Demon Judge. The real upper echelons of Bloodthirst Tower, apart from the Tower Master and Vice Tower Master, were the Blood Judge, Shadow Judge, Ghost Judge, and Demon Judge. The mission in the blood-colored jade slips is led by the Demon Judge. It seems that the difficulty and danger of the mission are extraordinary. The blood-colored jade slips have appeared several times before, but they were all led by gold-masked assassins. This time, the Demon Judge is taking the lead. It must be extremely dangerous. Many silver-masked and iron-masked assassins whispered to each other and discussed. "Quiet," the Demon Judge whispered. His voice was not loud, but the entire underground space fell into a deathly silence. In Bloodthirst Tower, the judge's dignity was not to be violated. This mission will be led by me, including the 5 gold-masked assassins. We need 15 silver-masked assassins and 50 iron-masked assassins. Those who want to participate can come and register, but you must think carefully. If you are not careful, you may lose your life. The demon judge's voice echoed in the underground space, and soon, many assassins exclaimed. Even Yi Guchen was slightly surprised. Putting aside the demon judge, whose strength was unfathomable, just the 5 gold-masked assassins and 15 silver-masked assassins were enough. That was 5 experts in the life and death chamber, and 15 experts in the divine soul realm. Even the 5 great aristocratic families of the Milky Way province would not be able to come up with such a lineup. Are they going to exterminate the whole clan? But even so, this lineup is too extravagant. Yi Guchen thought to himself. However, the more such a lineup was brought out, the more dangerous this mission was. For a moment, many of the assassins were speechless and hesitant. Seeing that no one responded, the demon judge snorted coldly and then said, "Because this mission is quite risky, we'll make an exception this time. The Iron Mask assassins who participate in this mission have a chance to enter the first 8 of the 18 blood prison, and they can go before the mission starts." Hiss! As soon as these words came out, the entire underground space was deathly silent at first, and then suddenly there was a burst of exclamations. The Gold Mask assassin and the Silver Mask assassin were both very powerful. It was not very difficult for them to fill the blood guillotine and enter the 18 blood prison. But for the Iron Mask assassin, it would be difficult to enter the 18 blood prison. It would take a long time. Right now, participating in a blood mission and entering the first 8 levels of the 18 blood prison was like a pie falling from the sky. The 18 blood prison was the core secret area of Blood Listening Tower. It was a place that all assassins yearned for. According to rumor, one would be able to comprehend the Azura sword intent after passing through the 18th level of the blood prison. However, besides the mysterious tower master, no one in the entire Bloodthirst Tower had been able to pass through the 18th level. But this did not mean that the Azura sword intent was the only opportunity in the 18 blood prison. There were a total of 18 levels in the 18 blood prison. It was rumored that there were many opportunities in each level. It could be a sword technique, a secret technique, a supreme-grade spirit weapon, a cultivation technique, and so on. It was also because of this that all the assassins of Blood Listening Tower were scrambling for the 18 blood prison. Even if they knew that they might not be able to pass through the 18th level and comprehend the Azura sword intent, they could at least obtain other opportunities. After the demon judge threw out this temptation, the breathing of many assassins in the underground space became heavier. Clearly, this benefit was very tempting, but they were not stupid. If they wanted to obtain something, they might have to pay more. His life was in danger during this mission. No matter how good the opportunity was, it was superfluous if they did not have the life to enjoy it. Amidst this deathly silence, a slightly hoarse voice suddenly opened its mouth. "I'll go." Many of the assassins, including Yi Guchen, looked over. The one who had spoken was an iron-faced assassin. However, he had blood-red hair, and his whole body exuded a bloody aura. Red-haired ghost. It's really him, a lunatic who doesn't care about his life. A lot of whispers suddenly sounded. Red-haired ghost was ranked 13th on the Heaven Pride list. He was eccentric, cold, and bloodthirsty. In a way, he was somewhat similar to Yi Guchen, who had transformed into the sword demon. But Yi Guchen only wanted to fill up the blood guillotine in exchange for a chance to comprehend the Azura sword intent. Red-haired ghost was purely murderous. "I'll go too." Another cold female voice rang out. It was Nightingale. Ever since Yi Guchen joined Blood Listening Tower, he and Nightingale had not interacted. They minded their own business. "Me too." Yi Guchen did not hesitate. He had joined Blood Listening Tower to enter the 18 blood prison and comprehend the Azura sword intent. Now that he had the opportunity to enter the 18 blood prison, even if only the first 8 levels were opened, it was very important for Yi Guchen. It could lay a foundation for him to pass through the 18-blood prison in the future. Red-haired ghost Nightingale Sword Demon. Apart from the most mysterious Yushircho, who rarely appeared and rarely accepted missions, the other 3 Heaven Prides on the Heaven Pride list had all accepted the Blood Red mission. With Yi Guchen and the others taking the lead, the required manpower was soon gathered. The mission was set to take place a month later. A few days later, Yi Guchen and the others would be led by the demon judge to the most mysterious 18-blood prison in Blood Listening Tower. Very quickly a few days passed. The demon judge brought Yi Guchen and the other assassins who had participated in the mission to a territory. The Chilling Wind Hills. The Chilling Wind Hills was one of the most dangerous places in the Saint Origin dynasty. Gusts of chilling wind roamed the place all year round. Even a chi refining master would be torn to shreds in an instant if they were caught in the chilling wind. Therefore, there were very few traces of cultivators and demonic beasts in the Chilling Wind Hills. However, many martial cultivators had died in the chilling wind, leaving behind many yuan rings, treasures, spiritual weapons and the like. From time to time, some cultivators would come here to take the risk and pick up the leftovers. From afar, Yi Guchen could vaguely see gusts of chilling wind, forming a tornado that swept back and forth across the hills. The cold and fierce undulations made Yi Guchen frown slightly. However, under the demon judge's lead, the Blood Listening Tower group did not encounter any chilling wind. After an unknown period of time, the demon judge led the group of assassins into the depths of the Chilling Wind Hills. The chilling wind here was even denser and had almost no pattern. Let alone a chi refinement grandmaster, even a divine spirit realm expert could die here if they were not careful. However, the demon judge still avoided the chilling wind, as if he could predict the future. Finally, after a period of time, the demon judge suddenly stopped in his tracks. This was already the deepest part of the Chilling Wind Hills. It was difficult for ordinary experts to set foot here. The demon judge took out a blood-red token. This token seemed to be made of blood. An eye was engraved on it, looking incomparably terrifying. 18-blood prison open. The demon judge poured his genuine chi into the blood-red token. Yi Guchen looked around and saw that the surrounding land was flat. There were no mountains or caves. Just as Yi Guchen was puzzled, a loud rumbling sound came from underground. Then, rays of blood-red light shot out from the ground, intertwining with each other and forming complex and unpredictable trajectories. Streaks of mysterious blood-red lines appeared on the ground. Then, a crack suddenly appeared on the ground. The crack grew bigger and bigger, until it formed an almost bottomless pitch-black cave. A lonely spiral of old stairs extended into the deepest part of the darkness. Some of the assassins had entered the 18-blood prison for the first time, so they naturally did not know that the 18-blood prison was underground. "Let's go," the demon judge said coldly. Yi Guchen and the others walked down the stone steps, and the light around them was swallowed up. After walking for an unknown period of time, Yi Guchen felt that they should have reached the bottom. In front of them was a huge bronze stone door. The bronze stone door was mottled and simple, with traces of blood red, looking as if it had been stained with blood. Vaguely, there seemed to be wisps of chilling wind howling from inside the door, which made one's hair stand on end. "This is the first floor of the 18-blood prison. If you are ready, enter. You only have one chance. Those who have the ability can break through to the 8th floor. If you can't hold on, you can withdraw and save your life," the demon judge said in a low and hoarse voice. As his voice fell, the bloodstained bronze stone door rumbled open, and a cold and gloomy aura spread out from within. "Go!" The demon judge waved his hand, and many of the assassins participating in this mission, including Yi Guchen, entered without hesitation. Chapter 32. After all the assassins had entered, the bronze door closed with a bang. Beside the demon judge, a slender and graceful figure appeared without a sound. The figure was dressed in tight black clothes, and the curves of her body made one's mouth dry. Her face was covered with a layer of black veil, revealing only a pair of pitch-black eyes that were like stars. "Yu Li, what brings you here?" the demon judge said indifferently, Surprisingly, this veiled woman was one of the 4 judges of Bloodthirst Tower. Judge Nether. Yu Li. I'm here to see how far the little guy who is valued by the Tower Lord can go, Yu Li said lazily. Yi Guchen, the former young sword master. I heard that he joined Tingxua Tower for the Azura sword essence in the 18 Blood Prison, the demon judge said. The first few levels of the 18 Blood Prison are fine. It's just a test of strength. The later levels are the real test of soul and will. Yu Li's tone was solemn. Obviously, as judges, they had also passed through the 18 Blood Prison. But even with their cultivation, they could not pass through it completely. The horror of the last few levels still made Yu Li feel a lingering fear. If he wants to get the Azura sword essence, let's see if he has the ability. The demon judge shook his head. The first level of the 18 Blood Prison. When Yi Guchen and the others entered, they found that this place was a dim space. It was filled with light blue fog, and it looked cold and strange. Yi Guchen had heard before that the 18 Blood Prison was a test of soul and will. In such an environment, ordinary people would have trembled, and their hearts would be pounding. But fortunately, the assassins of Tingxua Tower were all cold-blooded, so none of them made a fool of themselves. After walking for a short while, Yi Guchen saw many coffins that were placed in a disorderly manner. Coffins? Just as Yi Guchen was feeling puzzled, the lids of the coffins suddenly burst open. Corpses filled with a rotten aura shot toward the assassins of the bloodthirsty tower, with a ghostly aura. These corpses had scarlet eyes, and a brass luster on their bodies. They looked extremely sturdy. This is a corpse puppet. Yi Guchen recognized him. The so-called corpse puppets were puppets that were refined from corpses. This kind of heartless method was loathed and despised by many. Generally, only evil spirits would steal the corpses of cultivators and refine them into corpse puppets. However, Bloodheart Tower was never a righteous organization. Whoosh! A blood-red figure attacked. It was the red-haired ghost. Clearly, this was not his first time entering the 18 Blood Prison. He seemed to be quite familiar with the place. The red-haired ghost's weapon was a blood-red scythe with a chain attached to it. The scythe tore through the air and instantly beheaded a zombie. After the corpse puppet was beheaded, a fist-sized blood-red blob of light suddenly flew to the red-haired ghost's body and fused with it. The next moment, the red-haired ghost's life aura rose slightly. Could that be life essence? Yi Guchen was surprised. Cultivators cultivated all year round and had strong physiques and rich life essence. The reason why these corpse puppets could be as nimble as ordinary people, apart from the puppet imprint on their bodies, was because of the life essence. Of course, life essence could also be absorbed by others to strengthen their blood chi and physique. The 18 Blood Prison is indeed filled with opportunities. It's not just the Azura sword intent, Yi Guchen thought. Although he had transcended the second blood tribulation and cultivated the tendon's metamorphosis scripture, making his blood chi, flesh, and bones extremely strong, he did not mind having more. The next moment, Yi Guchen attacked as well. He held the supreme grade spirit artifact, the flying guillotine, and poured his essence into it. 15 blood-red artifact meridians lit up. The sharp sword chi was fluctuating. Yi Guchen drew his sword directly. The blood-red blade was so fast that only a blurry shadow could be seen. It was the connate sword art that all assassins of Bloodheart Tower cultivated, the shadow sword art. Pucci. Although the corpse puppets' bodies were very tough, they could not withstand Yi Guchen's sword move. Yi Guchen estimated that the strength of these brass corpse puppets was roughly equivalent to an expert at the peak of the essence realm. With Yi Guchen's current strength, he could be considered one of the strongest in the chi refinement realm. Naturally, he was not afraid of these brass corpse puppets. After Yi Guchen killed the corpse puppet, a ball of blood-red life essence merged into his body. Yi Guchen raised his eyebrows slightly. He found that not only did his blood chi become more vigorous, but it also transformed into more essence chi. If he killed more corpse puppets, Yi Guchen's cultivation realm might increase again. Since he had accepted the blood mission, the stronger he was the better. Yi Guchen let loose and used the shadow sword art. Sword shadows flashed as balls of life essence continuously merged into his body. Yi Guchen's cultivation realm also rose step by step. As time passed, Yi Guchen's cultivation gradually climbed to the peak of the 7th stage of the essence realm. He was only one step away from the 8th stage. However, sometimes the difference between realms was just a thin layer. This won't do. Although the brass corpse puppet's life essence is vigorous, it's accumulated to the extreme. It won't be of much use to me. Just as Yi Guchen was thinking in his heart, exclamations suddenly came from not far away. There were several extremely black coffins in front of him. As the assassins of Bloodhark Tower arrived, they exploded one after another. Wisps of dark silver light burst out. They were 5 corpse puppets. However, unlike the brass corpse puppet from before, these 5 corpse puppets were dark silver in color, and their physiques gave off a sense of indestructible strength. The scarlet in their eyes was even more intense than the brass corpse puppets. The surrounding murderous aura surged like waves. Silver corpse puppets. If the brass corpse puppet's strength was comparable to the peak of the essence realm, then the silver corpse puppet's strength was comparable to a true chi refinement grandmaster. Moreover, it wasn't the kind that had just broken through to the chi refinement realm. It was at least comparable to the 3rd cycle of the chi refinement realm. The life essence contained in these corpse puppets was far superior to the brass corpse puppets. However, although many Iron Mask assassins coveted the life essence in the silver corpse puppets, they were clearly not as easy to deal with as the brass corpse puppets. Although these Iron Mask assassins were also chi refinement grandmasters, corpse puppets did not feel pain. They were like ice-cold killing machines. Compared to martial cultivators, their methods were more direct and ruthless. Pucci, a first-cycle chi refinement realm Iron Mask assassin, was sent flying by a silver corpse puppet with a single punch. He vomited blood nonstop. Kill! A cold word came from the red-haired ghost's mouth. He was ranked 13th on the Heaven's Pride list. His strength and methods were clearly incomparable to ordinary chi refinement grandmasters. He directly charged towards a silver corpse puppet. On the other side, Nightingale, who had broken through to the 3rd cycle chi refinement realm, also attacked a silver corpse puppet. It seems that I'll have to kill a silver corpse puppet if I want to break through. Yi Guchen did not stay idle. He poured his chi essence into the blood guillotine. Blood-red vessels snaked out one after another, flickering with blood-red light. Swoosh! He thrust his sword forward. It was the moon-piercing sword art's ultimate move, shooting star-piercing moon. Yi Guchen struck a silver corpse puppet. However, when the tip of his sword touched the silver corpse puppet's body, a crisp sound of metal clashing rang out. An extremely strong rebounding force swept towards Yi Guchen. Yi Guchen's expression changed slightly. He suddenly shook his wrist and neutralized the rebounding force. What a powerful body! Yi Guchen was a little surprised. It seemed that the silver corpse puppet was not so easy to deal with. Boom! The silver corpse puppet was startled. It looked at Yi Guchen, and a blood-red light burst out from its eyes. It threw a punch at Yi Guchen. Chapter 33. The silver fist cut through the air, with an ear-piercing sonic boom. Even a normal chi refinement grandmaster would not be able to withstand such a powerful wave of energy. However, Yi Guchen's lips curled into a faint smile. His most shocking move was not his cultivation level or sword technique, but his physical body. An extremely powerful physical body. After cultivating Yi Jin's scripture to the great success stage, and passing the 2nd minor tribulation of the blood tribulation of the physical body, Yi Guchen's physical strength had reached an extremely terrifying level. Even without relying on Qi, he could fight a Qi refinement grandmaster head-on. Yi Guchen's body surface faintly glowed with a golden light. At the same time, the Qi and blood in his body roared. A layer of Qi and blood flames rose on the surface of his body, faintly taking the shape of a dragon and elephant. After passing the 2nd minor tribulation, not only was his physical recovery terrifying, but he also had the power of a dragon and elephant. Boom! Yi Guchen did not use any fancy martial arts. He also punched out. Many assassins were stunned when they saw Yi Guchen take on the silver corpse puppet head-on. Doesn't this sword demon know that the strongest part of a corpse puppet is its body, which is difficult to be injured by swords and sabers? Is the sword demon really suicidal to fight a corpse puppet in close combat? Boom. However, the following scene caused those voices of ridicule and doubt to come to an abrupt halt. Yi Guchen's fist, which was faintly glowing with a golden light, collided with the silver corpse puppet's fist and exploded with a thunderous sound. A circle of invisible, transparent ripples spread out from the tip of the fist like a wave. Under the two attacks, Yi Guchen and the silver corpse puppet were evenly matched. Then Yi Guchen was like a human-shaped tyrannosaurus. His whole body was burning with blood flames, like a demon god of fire. Vaguely, his chi and blood formed the shape of a dragon and elephant, accompanying him as they collided with the silver corpse puppet. On the other side, the red-haired ghost burst out with the terrifying cultivation of the fourth cycle of the chi refinement realm, and suppressed a silver corpse puppet. Nightingale was slightly weaker, but she was still able to fight evenly with the silver corpse puppet. The remaining two silver corpse puppets entered the crowd to look for targets. However, the Bloodthirst Tower's assassins were extremely swift, so they were barely able to deal with a single silver corpse puppet when 4 or 5 of them worked together. Clang! On the red-haired ghost's side, the blood-red chain scythe slashed through the air like a blood-red shadow. It continuously bombarded the silver corpse puppet's body, and white marks appeared on its hard silver body. On the other side, Yi Guchen didn't want to continue fighting. He used the shadow sword technique, and the flying guillotine fell on the silver puppet's body like a bloody light. Then, chi and blood suddenly exploded on the blade of the flying guillotine, and bloody flames spread to the silver corpse puppet. The corpse puppet did not feel any pain, so it did not feel anything. However, its refined body quietly began to soften and fester. Chi and blood flames had a strong suppressive effect on the body's chi and blood. It could even be used as fuel to burn, and it was very difficult to extinguish. The silver corpse puppet did not have any chi, but its body was strong. It just so happened that Yi Guchen could restrain it. As time passed, more and more festers appeared on the silver corpse puppet's body. Its entire body was engulfed in a ball of blood-red chi and blood flames. Kill! Yi Guchen's sword struck out like a clap of thunder. It was the horizontal lightning sword technique. A blood-red bolt of lightning streaked across the sky and directly cut off the silver corpse puppet's head. After being burned by the chi and blood flames, the corpse puppet's body was no longer as strong as before. Then an extremely thick ball of life essence, like rolling red lava, entered Yi Guchen's body. As this extremely thick ball of life essence entered his body, Yi Guchen felt the chi and blood in his body explode, rolling like waves. Every blood vessel in his body was surging with chi and blood. Soon, Yi Guchen's body shook, and his bones emitted a thunderous sound. His cultivation had reached the 8th level of the essence stage. The aura of this breakthrough attracted the attention of many bloodthirsty tower assassins. However, when they sensed Yi Guchen's aura, their eyes were filled with shock. What? Sword Demon has just broken through to the 8th level of the essence stage? How is it possible? He's only at the essence stage, but his combat strength is on par with the chi refinement stage. Moreover, his body is too strong. I'm afraid that even an ordinary chi refinement stage grandmaster can't compare to him. Yi Guchen's breakthrough shocked the group. Even the red-haired ghost glanced at Yi Guchen. As for Nightingale, she had already experienced Yi Guchen's power, so she just snorted coldly. After that, the red-haired ghost and Nightingale each destroyed 2 silver corpse puppets, while the remaining 2 silver corpse puppets were defeated by the group of assassins. The red-haired ghost and Nightingale did not break through after absorbing the life essence, but their bodies' chi and blood had become much more vigorous. Seeing that the corpse puppets were cleaned up, Yi Guchen and the others did not linger and continued on. Soon, they reached the end of the first level of the 18 Blood Prison, where a mottled ancient stone door appeared in front of them. The door opened with a click, and a chilly wind blew in. All the assassins, including Yi Guchen, did not hesitate. After tasting the sweetness of the life essence, they knew that there would be many opportunities in the 18 Blood Prison. The second level of the 18 Blood Prison. This level was a blood-red space. In this space, there were many blood-red shadows. These blood-red shadows were like ghosts. They were formless and formless. Even if they were cut apart by a sword or saber, they would scatter and gather again like mercury. And these blood-red phantoms could emit demon-like shrieks, which had the effect of disturbing one's mind. Soon, some of the assassins could not bear it anymore. They hugged their heads and wailed, and then could only helplessly retreat. However, this was only the second level of the 18-blood prison, so the sound waves that disturbed one's mind were not particularly strong. But for cultivators who had not even reached the divine soul realm, it was a huge pressure. Yi Guchen also endured this mental pressure, but with his temperament as a sword demon in his previous life, this kind of disturbance was almost nothing. Moreover, Yi Guchen vaguely felt that his soul and divine sense seemed to be faintly strengthened. Although Yi Guchen had not reached the divine soul realm, and had not opened his knowledge sea, he could still clearly feel this faint enhancement. Obviously, if one cultivated here for a long time, it would be very beneficial to the cultivation of their soul and divine sense. After some time, Yi Guchen and a small number of assassins also broke through the second level of the 18-blood prison. Then came the third level. When Yi Guchen entered this space, he was slightly stunned, because he was the only one here. Are they all scattered? Yi Guchen thought to himself. However, he did not hesitate, and continued to walk forward. Strangely, after Yi Guchen walked for a long time, there was not the slightest movement in this place, as if there was no test at all. Something was wrong. Yi Guchen was keenly aware of a dangerous aura. Xiao. Suddenly, there was an extremely subtle sound of wind breaking, and in an instant, it attacked the back of Yi Guchen's neck. It was a dark sword. This sword was fast and lightless, as if it was hidden in space. And facing this sword that was almost certain to kill, Yi Guchen did not seem to feel it, and did not even turn his head. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.